The wolves were closer than they should have been. Cole Maddox heard them before he saw the woman, their howls cutting through the Montana dusk like razors through cloth. He'd lived alone for 3 years, wanted it that way, needed it that way. The frontier didn't forgive weakness, and trust was a luxury for fools. But there she stood at his gate, abandoned like unwanted cargo, her eyes defiant despite the terror written across her face. Behind her, the forest darkened. The wolves circled, and Cole faced a choice that would destroy everything he'd built from grief and isolation. If you're watching from somewhere across this vast world, drop your city in the comments below. I want to see how far this story travels. Hit that like button and stay until the end, because what happens next will change everything. The ranch house sat like a scar against the Montana landscape. Weathered timber and stone, functional and cold, built by a man who no longer believed in comfort. Cole Maddox stood on his porch as the sun bled out across the western ridge, his rifle resting against his shoulder with the casual familiarity of a third arm. The evening ritual never changed. Check the perimeter, count the livestock, secure what mattered. Trust nothing. Expect less. He was halfway through his count when he heard the horse. The sound came wrong. Irregular hoofbeats, stumbling, a rider who didn't know the terrain. Cole's jaw tightened. Visitors meant complications, and complications meant people wanting something he couldn't give. His hand shifted to the rifle stock, finger finding the familiar groove worn smooth by years of use. The horse emerged from the tree line, a sorry-looking mare carrying 2 riders. No, 1 rider and 1 passenger. The distinction mattered. The man sat forward in the saddle, reins held with the grip of someone who'd bought his way onto a horse rather than earned his seat. The woman sat behind him, her posture rigid, hands gripping his coat not from affection, but necessity. Cole descended the porch steps slowly, deliberately. The rifle stayed casual, pointed at nothing and everything. "You're on private land." The rider pulled up short, the mare dancing sideways. Up close, the man looked exactly like what Cole expected. City clothes trying to pass as frontier wear, soft hands, softer spine. His smile came too quick, too practiced. "Mr. Maddox? Cole Maddox?" The man's voice carried that particular blend of false friendliness that preceded a request. "Name's Harold Finch. I've got a situation." "Not interested." Cole's response was automatic. "Now hold on. Gate's behind you. Use it." Finch's smile strained. "I'm willing to pay." "Don't need money." Cole shifted his weight, making the rifle's presence more obvious. "Need you gone." The woman spoke for the first time, her voice cutting through Finch's building protest. "Mr. Maddox, please." Cole's eyes moved to her. Mid-20s, maybe younger. Dark hair pulled back, severe and practical. Eyes that had seen enough to know when to be afraid but hadn't quite learned how to hide it. Her dress was Eastern, quality fabric, impractical buttons, made for parlors and tea services, not Montana wilderness. But her hands told a different story. They gripped Finch's coat with white-knuckled determination, and Cole recognized that grip. He'd seen it before years ago, on soldiers who knew they were losing but refused to quit. "The lady and I had an arrangement," Finch said, his salesman's tone returning. "Marriage, settlement, the whole civilized package. But circumstances have changed, you see, and—" "No." The woman's voice went flat. "Tell him the truth." Finch's neck flushed red. "The truth is complicated. The truth is you lied." She released his coat, sliding off the horse with more grace than Cole expected. Her boots hit the ground, and she stood there, chin up, shoulders back despite the tremor Cole could see running through her frame. "The truth is you took my money for passage and promises, and now you're dumping me at the first convenient gate because your actual wife is waiting 3 towns over." The silence that followed held teeth. Finch cleared his throat. "Now, Eliza—" "Miss Hart," she corrected, her voice ice. "We're not familiar." Cole felt something shift in his chest, unexpected and unwelcome. Recognition, maybe? The kind that comes from seeing your own stubbornness reflected back. He pushed it down hard. "This isn't my problem," Cole said. "I'm not asking you to make it your problem," Eliza replied, turning those sharp eyes on him. "I'm asking for shelter. 1 night. I'll be gone by morning." "No?" "Mr. Maddox." "Ma'am, I don't take in strays, don't take in anybody. You want civilization? There's a town 15 miles northeast. He can take you." Cole jerked his chin toward Finch. Can't, Finch said too quickly. Got business south. Opposite direction entirely. Like I said, I'm willing to pay for your trouble. How much did he pay you? Eliza's question cut across Finch's negotiation. She was looking at Cole now, really looking, reading him the way you read a contract for loopholes. To take me off his hands, what's the going rate for a discarded woman? Finch sputtered. Cole's expression didn't change. Nothing, Cole said. Told you I don't want... Then why is he still talking? Eliza stepped forward, closing the distance between them. She was tall for a woman, nearly met his eye level. If you truly wanted nothing to do with this, you'd have already run us off, but you're still here, still listening, which means some part of you knows that leaving me stranded 15 miles from anywhere with night coming and no provisions is a death sentence. Cole's jaw worked. She wasn't wrong. The Montana frontier killed people every day. Exposure, animals, accident, malice. A woman alone, on foot, in the dark. She wouldn't make 5 miles. Not my concern, he said, but the words came harder this time. No, Eliza agreed. It's not. But I'm making it your choice. The howl came then, distant but unmistakable. Wolf song rising from the valley below. A second voice joined, then a third. The mare sidled nervously, and Finch jerked the reins too hard. Jesus, Finch breathed. Cole knew those wolves. He'd tracked the pack for 2 seasons, knew their patterns, their territory. They shouldn't be this close to the house. Not unless they were hunting, not unless they were desperate. Another howl, closer. Give her a rifle, Cole said flatly. Ammunition. Enough food for 3 days, then get off my land. I don't have a rifle, Finch said. Cole's eyes narrowed. You rode into Montana without a weapon? I have a pistol. Give her the pistol. Now see here. The fourth howl came from the tree line, close enough that Cole could almost place the position. The mare whinnied, wild-eyed, and Finch fought to control her. Mr. Maddox. Eliza's voice stayed level, but Cole heard the fear underneath. She heard it too, the wolves closing in. I can work. I can cook, clean, mend, teach if you have children who need it. Don't. I can pay you back whatever rate you think fair. I said no. Then let me die honest. The words came sharp, desperate. Let me die knowing I tried everything, asked for help, got refused by a man too broken to remember what being human costs. The silence after her outburst rang louder than the wolves. Cole stared at her. She stared back, chest heaving, eyes bright with fury and terror mixed in equal measure. Finch had gone silent, sensing the shift in current, knowing his part in this drama had ended. You don't know anything about me, Cole said quietly. I know enough. Eliza's voice dropped, matching his tone. I know a man who's been alone so long he's forgotten that surviving isn't the same as living. I know someone who's built walls so high he thinks they make him strong, when really they just make him small. Cole's hand tightened on the rifle. You should watch your mouth. Why? You're already sending me to my death. What's a few honest words going to change? The wolf howl came again, and this time Cole saw movement in the shadows. A gray shape, low and quick, testing the perimeter. Then another. The pack was circling, drawn by the horse's panic, by the scent of fear sweat and fresh meat. Cole made the calculation in seconds. Distance to town, nightfall in 30 minutes, wolves emboldened by hunger, a woman with no weapon and a coward on a panicked horse. The math was simple, brutal, final. He'd made harder choices. He'd lived with worse. But when he opened his mouth to send them away, different words came out. Get inside. Eliza blinked. What? You've got till morning. Cole's voice came rough, angry, at her, at himself, at the weakness that made him capable of this choice. One night. You stay in the spare room, keep to yourself, leave at first light. We're not going to talk. We're not going to be friendly. Your cargo I'm storing, nothing more. Mr. Maddox, don't thank me. Cole turned his attention to Finch, who'd gone pale. You. Leave whatever supplies you've got. Food, blankets, anything useful. Put it on the porch. I need those supplies for my own. Cole raised the rifle, not pointing it at Finch exactly, but making the potential very clear. Now. Finch moved fast, fumbling with saddlebags, dropping items in his haste. Hardtack, a wool blanket, a canteen, a small leather pouch that clinked with coins. Eliza watched him with an expression Cole couldn't quite read. Disgust, yes, but something else. Understanding, maybe. The kind that comes from seeing clearly what someone is and accepting you'd been a fool to expect better. Eliza, Finch started, attempting sincerity one last time. I'm sorry it came to this, truly, but you have to understand shit. I understand perfectly. Her voice had gone cold, distant. You're a liar and a coward, and whatever hell you've made of your life, you've earned every burning minute of it. Get out of my sight. Finch opened his mouth, closed it, then wheeled the mare around and kicked her into a gallop. They disappeared into the trees, hoofbeats fading fast, a man running from consequences he'd created. Eliza stood in the yard, surrounded by her meager pile of abandoned supplies, and for a long moment she didn't move. The wolves called again, closer now, and Cole saw her flinch. Inside, he said again, unless you want to meet them personally. She gathered the supplies quickly, efficiently, and followed him up the porch steps. Cole opened the door, heavy timber, iron hinges, built to keep the world out, and held it while she entered. The interior matched the exterior, functional, sparse, clean in the way of a man who'd stripped away everything unnecessary. A stone fireplace dominated one wall. A wooden table with 2 chairs sat near it. A narrow staircase led to the upper floor. No curtains, no decorations, no softness anywhere. It was a house built for survival, not living. Eliza set down her supplies and turned to face him. Thank you. Told you not to do that. And I'm doing it anyway. She met his eyes without flinching. Whatever your reasons, whatever you think this is, you saved my life tonight. I won't pretend otherwise. Cole moved past her to the fireplace, began building a fire with practiced efficiency. Spare rooms upstairs, last door on the left. There's a wash basin, clean linens. Bar the door if it makes you feel safer. Will I need to? The question hung in the air between them. Cole struck flint to tinder, watched the spark catch and grow. No. Then I won't. He didn't respond, focused instead on feeding the young flames, building the fire properly. Behind him, he heard Eliza exploring the space. Soft footsteps, a cabinet opening and closing, the sound of someone trying to understand their temporary prison. You live alone, she said. Not a question. Yes. How long? Long enough. That's not an answer. Cole turned to face her. She'd found his small pantry, was examining the contents with the critical eye of someone who knew food preparation. 3 years. And before you ask, no, I don't want to talk about it. I didn't ask. You were going to. A small smile touched her lips, unexpected and genuine. You're probably right. She pulled out flour, salt, dried meat. These supplies, they're enough for one person, carefully rationed. Not enough for 2, even for a night. When's the last time you went to town? 2 months. And you're not due back for another month at least. She nodded, calculating. Which means feeding me tonight actually costs you something. More than hospitality. More than kindness. It's a real sacrifice. Cole's jaw tightened. He didn't like being read this easily. It's 1 meal. It's more than that, and we both know it. Eliza set the ingredients on the counter. Let me cook. It's the least I can do. You don't need to... I'm not asking permission, Mr. Maddox. I'm telling you what's happening. She began working, movements confident despite the unfamiliar kitchen. You can sit there and glower, or you can be useful. Your choice. Against every instinct, Cole found himself almost wanting to smile. Almost. You're bossy for someone who was begging for shelter an hour ago. Desperate circumstances require flexible tactics. She measured flour by eye, added water from the pump, began kneading dough. Besides, I wasn't begging. I was negotiating. That what you call it? I got what I wanted, didn't I? Fair point. Cole pulled out one of the chairs and sat, rifle still within easy reach. Old habits. The fire crackled behind them, pushing back the darkness gathering outside. They worked in silence for a while, Eliza preparing food, Cole watching the windows, tracking shadows. The wolves had gone quiet, which meant they were either leaving or settling in for a patient siege. Cole suspected the latter. What were you doing with Finch? The question came out before Cole could stop it. Eliza didn't pause in her work. Believing a liar, making a mistake, Pick your preferred phrasing. No family back east? None that matters. She formed the dough into rough biscuits, set them in the cast iron pan Cole kept by the fire. I was a teacher in Philadelphia. Good school, good position. Then the school's benefactor decided I'd make a good mistress. When I refused, I found myself unemployed with a reputation in ruins. So you came west. So I tried to come west. Eliza slid the pan into the fire's edge, adjusted the coals with the poker, answered an advertisement for a mail-order bride. Seemed preferable to starvation or surrender. Finch seemed acceptable. A lie I wanted to believe. Cole understood that better than he wanted to admit. And now? Now I'm stranded in Montana with one night's charity from a man who clearly wishes I was anywhere else. She straightened, wiped her hands on her skirt. Tomorrow I walk to town. Find work if there is any. Make a new plan. I'm adaptable. 15 miles through wolf country with a pistol you probably don't know how to use. I'll manage. You'll die. Eliza turned to face him fully. Then I'll die free of men who lie, men who use, men who see women as problems to be solved or discarded. There are worse deaths. The conviction in her voice struck something in Cole's chest. Not sympathy exactly, but recognition. He'd had that same conversation with himself 3 years ago, standing over fresh graves, deciding whether to keep breathing or follow his family into the ground. He'd chosen survival, barely. The town's called Silver Creek, Cole said quietly. 15 miles northeast, like I said. About 200 people, maybe less. Doctor, general store, boarding house. School teacher quit last month, left for Sacramento with a mining engineer. They might need a replacement. Eliza's eyebrows rose slightly. That almost sounded helpful. Don't read into it. Wouldn't dream of it. The biscuits cooked, filling the sparse house with a smell Cole hadn't experienced in years. Fresh bread, made by someone who cared about the result. Eliza served them with the dried meat reconstituted into something approaching a stew, and they ate in continued silence. Cole watched her between bites. She ate efficiently, no wasted movement, someone accustomed to making small portions last. Her manners spoke of education, but her practicality spoke of harder lessons. She'd been hungry before. Recently, probably. How much money do you have? Cole asked. Eliza paused mid-bite. That's direct? You said Finch took your money. How much is left? She set down her fork carefully. Enough for maybe 2 nights at the boarding house. If the rates are fair. If they'll rent to a woman alone. They won't. Excuse me? Martha Dawson runs the boarding house. Good woman, fair woman, but she won't rent to an unmarried female without references. Says it attracts the wrong element. Eliza's laugh came sharp and bitter. Of course. Can't have women cluttering up the frontier without proper male supervision. It's not about supervision. It's about survival. Silver Creek's rough. Mining camp that's trying to become a town. More men than sense, more money than morals. Martha's protecting you whether you like it or not. And where does that leave me? Cole didn't answer immediately. He knew the math. Without lodging, without money, without prospects, Eliza had maybe 3 options. Marry quickly, sell something she shouldn't have to sell, or die. The frontier didn't offer 4th choices. The school board's run by William Garrett, Cole said finally. Owns the mercantile. If you can convince him you're qualified, he might front you the teacher's cottage as part of the salary. Might. It's what I've got. Eliza studied him across the table. You know a lot about this town for someone who avoids people. I avoid them. Doesn't mean I don't pay attention. Why help me at all? The question came soft but direct. You've made it abundantly clear you want nothing to do with, well, anything human. So why this? Why any of it? Cole stood abruptly, gathering the dishes. You're here one night. Come morning, you're gone. That's the extent of our arrangement. That's not an answer. It's the only one you're getting. He moved to the wash basin, began cleaning the dishes with more force than necessary. Behind him, he heard Eliza rise, heard her footsteps approach. Mr. Maddox. Cole. The correction came rough. If we're sharing a roof, even for one night, you can use my name. Cole, she repeated, testing it. I'm not asking you to save me. I'm not asking you to fix my life or solve my problems. I'm just trying to understand why a man who clearly wants to be alone is going out of his way to help a stranger. Cole's hands stilled in the water. The honest answer lodged in his throat. Because I remember what it's like to need help and find none. Because the world took everything from me, and I'm still angry enough to spite it by keeping you alive. Because you remind me that I used to be human, and I hate you for it. But he couldn't say those things. Wouldn't. Get some sleep, he said instead. Long walk tomorrow. Eliza stood there a moment longer, and Cole felt her gaze on his back like a physical weight. Then she moved away, her footsteps climbing the stairs. A door opened, closed. Silence returned to the house like water filling a hole. Cole finished the dishes slowly, methodically. Outside, a wolf howled, distant now, moving on. The pack had found easier prey, or simply lost interest. Tomorrow he'd check the perimeter, make sure they hadn't tested the fence line. Tomorrow, Eliza would be gone. The thought should have brought relief. Instead, it sat in his chest like a stone. He banked the fire, checked the rifle one last time, and climbed the stairs to his own room. The hallway was dark, but he could see a thin line of light under Eliza's door. Still awake, probably planning, calculating her next impossible move. Cole entered his room, closed the door, and lay down on the bed still fully clothed. Sleep, when it came, was thin and troubled. He dreamed of wolves circling, of walls crumbling, of choices that couldn't be unmade. When he woke to gray pre-dawn light, he knew immediately something had changed. The house was too quiet. Cole rose quickly, moved to the window. Fresh snow had fallen during the night, 4, maybe 5 inches, covering the landscape in pristine white, beautiful and deadly. The temperature had dropped hard. He could see his breath inside the room. He moved to the hallway, paused at Eliza's door. Knocked once. Miss Hart? No answer. Cole tried the handle. Unlocked, like she'd said. The room was empty, the bed neatly made. For a moment he thought she'd left in the night, attempted the journey in darkness rather than face him again. Then he heard the noise downstairs. He descended quickly, rifle in hand, and found Eliza crouched by the fireplace, trying to restart the fire. She'd bundled herself in the spare blanket Finch had left, her breath visible in the cold air. It went out, she said without turning. I woke up freezing and came down to restart it, but I can't get the kindling to catch. Cole moved past her, took over without speaking. His hands knew the work, proper arrangement, proper airflow, proper fuel. The fire caught within minutes, flames spreading warmly. How do you do that? Eliza asked. Practice. I know how to make a fire. I'm educated, not useless. Knowing and doing are different things. Cole stood, moved to the window. The snow was still falling, lighter now, but steady. This changes things. The snow? You can't walk to Silver Creek in this. Not in those boots, not with that coat. You'd freeze before you made 5 miles. Eliza joined him at the window, stared out at the white landscape. How long will it last? Hard to say. Could clear by afternoon. Could snow for 3 days. And if it's 3 days, Cole felt the trap closing, the universe laughing at his attempt to control any part of his life. Then you stay until it clears. I thought you wanted me gone. I do. But I'm not a murderer. Cole turned from the window, moved to the pantry. We'll need to ration food. What I have will stretch maybe 5 days for 2 people, less if the storm's bad. Water's not a problem. We can melt snow. Heat's manageable as long as the wood holds out. You're prepared for this. Out here, you prepare for everything or you die. Eliza pulled the blanket tighter. I'm sorry. I know this isn't what you wanted. What I want stopped mattering a long time ago. Cole began pulling out supplies, calculating portions. You know how to shoot? No. Cook game if I bring it in? Yes? Good. Because if this lasts more than 2 days, I'll need to hunt. He set jerky, flour, and beans on the counter. Breakfast is jerky and coffee. Lunch is the same. Dinner we'll make biscuits again. Stretch it with whatever I can bring in. You eat what I give you, no more. Understood? Understood? They prepared breakfast in silence, the fire slowly warming the room. Cole made coffee strong and bitter, the way he liked it, and Eliza didn't complain. They ate standing up, watching the snow fall. Tell me about Silver Creek, Eliza said finally. If I'm going there, I should know what I'm walking into. Cole considered refusing, then realized he had 3 days minimum to fill with something other than hostile silence. What do you want to know? Everything. Population, economy, social structure. What keeps it alive? What's killing it? What it needs to survive? You sound like a surveyor. I sound like a teacher assessing a new position. Eliza refilled her coffee. I don't walk into situations blind anymore. I did that once. You see how it ended. Fair enough. Cole leaned against the counter, cradled his coffee, and began talking. Started as a mining camp 5 years ago. Silver strike in the hills brought prospectors, prospectors brought businesses, businesses brought families. Population peaked at about 402 years ago, been declining since. The easy silver's gone. What's left requires equipment and expertise most independent miners don't have. So it's dying. Transitioning. Some folks are leaving, but others are staying, trying to build something real. Ranching, farming, legitimate trade. The town's at a crossroads. Either it becomes something sustainable, or it becomes a ghost town in 5 years. And the people? Cole shrugged. Mix of everything. Miners, ranchers, merchants, drifters. William Garrett runs the mercantile, like I said. He's smart, ambitious, sees the writing on the wall about the mining. Martha Dawson at the boarding house. Sheriff's a man named Tom Crawford. Fair, tough, drinks too much, but not enough to matter. Doc Brennan's competent when he's sober, useless when he's not. Inspiring. It's the frontier. Nobody out here's running from success. Eliza smiled slightly at that. True enough? What about church? Social institutions? There's a church. Ministers new came last year. Earnest type, trying hard. And there's the school, which is where you'd fit in. Tell me about it. Cole refilled his coffee, buying time. He didn't like how easily he was talking, how natural it felt to have another voice in the house. Dangerous. One room serves about 20 kids aged 6 to 15. Previous teacher was a woman named Sarah Chen, good at her job, but she wanted more than Silver Creek could offer. The building needs work. The parents care but don't have money. The school board has ideas but no follow-through. It's a mess waiting for someone with enough spine to fix it. And you think I have that spine. I think you walked into Montana with nothing but lies and stubbornness. If you can survive one night with me, you can probably handle a classroom of frontier children. Eliza laughed, genuine and surprised. Was that almost a compliment? Don't let it go to your head. They finished breakfast, cleaned up, settled into an uneasy routine. Cole tended the fire while Eliza explored the house more thoroughly, not prying exactly, but observing. He caught her looking at the empty spaces on the walls where pictures had once hung, the bare shelves that had held books and keepsakes, the deliberate absence of anything personal. You stripped it, she said quietly. This house, it used to be a home, now it's just structure. Cole's jaw tightened. Homes require people. I don't have people. You had them once. That's not your business. No, Eliza agreed. But grief is grief, Cole. Hiding from it doesn't make it smaller. And what would you know about it? She turned to face him fully. I know that running doesn't work. I know that building walls just traps you with the very thing you're trying to escape. I know that surviving and living are different things, and right now, we're both just surviving. Cole stood abruptly. I'm checking the perimeter. Stay inside. He grabbed his coat and rifle and stepped into the snow before she could respond. The cold hit him like a fist, clean, sharp, honest. He preferred it to the conversation he was fleeing. The snow had accumulated fast, and Cole moved along the fence line, checking for damage, for weak points, for any sign the wolves had returned. The work was familiar, meditative, gave his hands something to do while his mind processed the uncomfortable truth Eliza had spoken. She was right. About all of it. He hated her for it. The perimeter check took 2 hours. When Cole returned, stamping snow from his boots, he found Eliza had reorganized his pantry with ruthless efficiency. It was chaos, she said before he could protest. Now it's alphabetical and categorized by use frequency. You can thank me later. I didn't ask you to. I needed something to do, and sitting quietly while you brooded outside seemed like a waste of both our time. She gestured to the neat shelves. Besides, your system made no sense. Flour next to ammunition? It worked for me. It was objectively terrible. Cole stared at his reorganized supplies, then at Eliza's satisfied expression, and felt something crack in his chest. Not breaking exactly, shifting, making room for something he'd thought dead. "Fine," he said. "It's better." "I know it is." They fell into rhythm after that, uneasy but functional. Cole maintained the house, tended the fire, watched the weather. Eliza cooked, cleaned, asked questions that gradually stopped being invasive and started being genuinely curious. By the second day, the snow had stopped, but the cold remained brutal. Cole hunted, bringing back 2 rabbits that Eliza turned into a stew that actually tasted like something worth eating. By the 3rd day, they were having actual conversations. "You never mentioned what happened," Eliza said over dinner. "Your family." Cole's fork paused halfway to his mouth. "No, I didn't." "Are you going to?" He should have shut it down, should have ended the conversation the way he'd ended every attempt at connection for 3 years. Instead, he heard himself talking. "Sarah was her name, my wife. We had a daughter, Emma, 4 years old." The words came rough, rusty from disuse. Fever took them both. "One week in winter 3 years ago. I tried everything, rode for the doctor, but the storm was too bad. By the time I got back..." He stopped, couldn't continue. Eliza didn't offer empty sympathy. She just listened, present and still. "I buried them on the hill behind the house," Cole continued. "Built the markers myself. And then I stripped everything that reminded me of them out of this place because I couldn't look at their things without..." His voice broke. He stopped, swallowed hard. "I couldn't." "So you survived by forgetting. By not remembering. There's a difference." "Is there?" Cole met her eyes across the table. "You tell me. What are you running from?" Eliza's smile was sad. "Everything. My old life, my mistakes, my fear of making new ones. I thought if I came west, I could be someone different. Turns out you bring yourself with you wherever you go. That's the problem with running. And yet here we both are, running in place." The truth of it sat between them like a third presence. Outside, the wind howled, rattling the windows. Inside, the fire crackled steadily. "The snow's clearing," Cole said finally. "You can leave tomorrow, probably." "Probably?" "Weather's unpredictable, but the main road should be passable." Eliza nodded slowly. "Back to the original plan, then. Walk to Silver Creek, convince William Garrett I'm worth hiring, find somewhere to sleep that isn't your floor. Martha might make an exception if Garrett vouches for you." "Might. It's still more than you had 3 days ago." "True." Eliza stood, began clearing dishes. "For what it's worth, Cole, these 3 days, they weren't terrible." "High praise." "I mean it. You're stubborn, closed off, and occasionally infuriating. But you're also honest, capable, and you kept your word. That's rare enough to matter." Cole didn't know how to respond to that, so he didn't. He helped clean up in silence, banked the fire for the night, and retreated to his room. But sleep didn't come easily. He lay there listening to the house settle, to Eliza moving around in the spare room, and realized with uncomfortable clarity that tomorrow the house would be empty again. Silent again. His again. The thought brought no comfort. Morning came gray and cold. Cole woke to find Eliza already downstairs, dressed in her Eastern clothes, her few possessions packed and ready. "Road's clear enough," Cole said, standing in the doorway. "I'll walk you to the main trail, make sure you're pointed right." "That's not necessary. Humor me." They set out together, Cole leading, Eliza following. The snow crunched under their boots, and their breath made clouds in the frozen air. Neither spoke until they reached the trail junction. "Northeast from here," Cole said, pointing. "Stay on the main road. You'll see the town in about 4 hours if you keep a steady pace." "Thank you." Eliza extended her hand formally. "For everything." Cole shook it, her hand small and cold in his, her grip firm. "Good luck, Miss Hart." "Eliza," she corrected. "If we're being human with each other, even briefly, you can use my name." "Eliza," he repeated. She smiled, released his hand, and started walking. Cole watched her go, a dark figure against white snow, moving with more confidence than she'd arrived with. He should have turned back then, should have returned to his empty house, an empty life, and been grateful for the return to normal. Instead, he heard himself calling after her. "Eliza." She stopped, turned. If Garrett's an ass, if the town doesn't work out. Cole paused, the words fighting their way out. You know where I am. Her smile this time reached her eyes. I do. Then she was walking again, and Cole stood there until she disappeared around the bend. Only then did he turn back toward his ranch, his solitude, his carefully constructed isolation. The house, when he entered it, felt different, emptier, wrong. Cole tried to settle back into routine, check the animals, mend the fence, split firewood. But his mind kept drifting to Silver Creek, to whether Eliza had made it safely, to whether Garrett would see what Cole had seen in her. 3 days. That's all it had been. 3 days with a stranger who'd forced her way into his life and then walked back out of it. It shouldn't matter, it did. And somewhere between the woodpile and the setting sun, Cole Maddox realized that Eliza Hart had done something impossible. She'd reminded him what it felt like to care whether someone lived or died. The bastard part was, now he couldn't seem to stop. The weeks that followed moved like cold molasses, slow, thick, suffocating. Cole told himself he wasn't thinking about Eliza. He told himself while checking the fence line, while hunting, while lying awake at 3 a.m. staring at ceiling beams that had witnessed too many empty nights. The lie tasted familiar on his tongue, worn smooth by years of practice. 2 weeks after she'd left, he rode into Silver Creek for supplies. The town sprawled across a shallow valley like a collection of children's blocks. Rough timber buildings, muddy streets, the persistent smell of wood smoke and horse manure. Cole hitched his horse outside Garrett's mercantile and pushed through the door, triggering a bell that announced his presence with cheerful aggression. William Garrett looked up from behind the counter, his merchant smile automatic but genuine. Cole Maddox, thought you'd frozen to death out there. Not yet. Cole pulled out his supply list, handwritten and specific. Need these, can you fill it? Garrett scanned the paper, his eyebrows rising slightly. Doubled your usual flour order, salt too. Planning on feeding an army? Planning on not coming back for a while. Fair enough. Garrett moved to gather items, calling over his shoulder. You hear about our new school teacher? Cole's hand stilled on a barrel of nails. No. Eastern woman. Showed up 2 weeks back, half frozen and entirely determined. Convinced me to hire her inside of 10 minutes. Damnedest thing I ever saw. Garrett returned with an armful of supplies. Name's Eliza Hart. You know her? Cole kept his expression neutral. We've met. She mentioned you, said you helped her when she first arrived. Garrett's eyes sharpened with curiosity. That true? Gave her a night's shelter, nothing more. Well, whatever you did, she speaks highly of it. Not many people speak highly of you, Cole. No offense. None taken. Garrett continued packing supplies, but his tone shifted. Less merchant, more town elder. She's good with the children, better than good. Got the school organized in a week, has the parents actually showing up to meetings. Even got old Anders to donate lumber for new desks. Sounds like she's managing. She's doing more than managing. She's making a difference. Garrett paused, measuring his next words. Town needs people like her, people who see potential instead of just problems. Cole paid for his supplies in silence, loaded them onto his horse, and tried to leave without asking. Failed. Where's she staying? Garrett's smile was knowing. Martha gave her the small room above the boarding house. Special rate since she's teaching, works out well for everyone. Cole nodded once, mounted his horse, and told himself he was riding straight home. He made it halfway out of town before turning around. The boarding house sat on the eastern edge of Silver Creek, a 2-story structure that had started life as someone's ambitious dream and settled into functional reality. Cole tied his horse and climbed the exterior stairs to the second floor, each step an argument with himself he was losing. He knocked before he could reconsider. The door opened and Eliza stood there in a simple dress, her hair pulled back practically, her hands stained with ink. Her surprise was genuine, but something else flickered across her face. Something that looked like relief. Cole. Miss Hart. He fell back on formality instinctively. Heard you got the position. I did. She stepped back, opening the door wider. Would you like to come in? He shouldn't. He knew he shouldn't. He crossed the threshold anyway. The room was small, but she'd made it hers. Books stacked on every available surface, papers organized with military precision, a small desk positioned to catch the best light. Lesson plans, from the look of it, maps, student assessments, The organized chaos of someone who cared deeply about her work. It's not much, Eliza said, following his gaze, but it's mine. First place that's been mine in a long time. It suits you. Organized chaos? Purpose. Cole turned to face her. Garrett says you're doing well. Garrett's being generous. I'm doing adequately and improving daily. She moved to the desk, began straightening papers that didn't need straightening. The children are wonderful, challenging, but wonderful. Half of them have never held a proper book. The other half can barely read. But they want to learn, and that's everything. You sound happy. The observation seemed to surprise her. She paused, considered it. I am, or I'm getting there. It's strange, isn't it? How happiness sneaks up on you when you're not looking. Cole didn't answer. Happiness had stopped sneaking up on him years ago. Why are you here, Cole? The question came gentle but direct. It's been 2 weeks. You could have kept writing. Wanted to make sure you were settled. You don't strike me as the checking in type. Maybe I'm changing. Are you? The silence stretched between them, heavy with things neither could say. Cole moved to the window, looked out at the town spreading below. Small, struggling, alive in a way his ranch had stopped being. Sarah loved teaching, he said quietly, before Emma was born. She taught reading to the miners' children, anyone who wanted to learn. Said education was the only real currency in the world. Eliza joined him at the window. She sounds remarkable. She was. Cole's jaw worked. I haven't talked about her in 3 years. Not to anyone. Then you show up and suddenly I can't seem to stop. Maybe you needed to. Maybe. He turned to face her. You were right, what you said before, about surviving versus living. I'm not always right. You were about that. Eliza studied him with those sharp eyes, reading him the way she probably read her students, looking for understanding beneath the surface. What happens now? Don't know. Cole pulled his hat back on. But I needed to see for myself that you were all right. Now I have. Cole, wait. She caught his arm as he moved toward the door. Don't disappear again. The town, the people here, they're good people. They could use someone like you. I'm not a people person. Neither was I. Look how that turned out. Despite himself, Cole almost smiled. I'll think about it. That's all I'm asking. He left before the conversation could go deeper, before he could say things that scared him. The ride home felt longer than usual, and the house when he entered it seemed to mock him with its emptiness. But something had shifted. Some wall had developed a crack. The next month unfolded with painful slowness. Cole maintained his routine, worked the land, tend the animals, survived the winter. But now there was an addition. Every 2 weeks he rode into Silver Creek for supplies. And every time he found reasons to walk past the school. He told himself it was coincidence. The school just happened to be on the way to the mercantile. That he paused to watch through the windows was mere curiosity. That his chest tightened when he saw Eliza teaching, animated, passionate, fully alive, meant nothing at all. The lies were getting harder to maintain. You're pathetic, he told himself one afternoon, standing across the street from the schoolhouse like some lovesick fool. 3 years of isolation, and one woman has you acting like someone who cares about something again? Cole spun to find Sheriff Tom Crawford standing behind him, thumbs hooked in his belt, expression amused. Don't you have actual crime to investigate? Cole asked. In Silver Creek? On a Tuesday afternoon? Crawford moved to stand beside him, following his gaze to the schoolhouse. She's good for this town. Hell, she's good for everyone. Gets people thinking about the future instead of just the next silver vein. I'm aware. And you're standing here watching her teach like a man with something on his mind. Cole's jaw tightened. Your point? No point, just observation. Crawford pulled out a cigarette, lit it. You know the town dance is next Saturday. Annual thing, raises money for the school. Miss Hart's been instrumental in organizing it. Good for her. Thought you might want to attend. I don't dance. Neither do most of us. We do it anyway. Crawford took a long drag. Besides, it's for the children. Supporting education and all that civic virtue. Cole finally turned to look at the sheriff directly. What are you really saying, Tom? Crawford's amusement faded into something more serious. I'm saying that woman walked into this town with nothing and built something worth having. I'm saying she asks about you every time I see her. Casual-like, but I notice. I'm saying life's short and the frontier makes it shorter, and if you found something that makes you want to participate in it again, maybe you should stop fighting so damn hard. You giving me life advice now? Somebody needs to. Crawford dropped the cigarette, crushed it under his boot. 3 years is long enough to mourn, Cole. Sarah and Emma. They wouldn't want you living like this. The anger came fast and hot. You didn't know them. No, but I know you. Knew you before anyway. You were a good man. Could be again, if you'd let yourself. Crawford walked away before Cole could respond, leaving him standing there with truth he didn't want to hear burning in his chest. The dance was the last thing Cole wanted to attend. He spent the week convincing himself not to go, then spent Saturday afternoon getting ready anyway. His good shirt, the one Sarah had made him, that he'd packed away 3 years ago. His cleaned boots. His shaved face staring back at him from the mirror like an accusation. This is stupid, he told his reflection. You're going to look like a fool. His reflection didn't argue. The town hall blazed with light and noise when Cole arrived. Music spilled from the open doors, fiddle, guitar, someone's enthusiastic but off-key singing. Inside, the whole town seemed to have turned out. Families, miners, shopkeepers, all dressed in their best, all determined to celebrate something, anything, in the middle of a brutal Montana winter. Cole almost turned around. Then he saw Eliza. She stood near the refreshment table talking with Martha Dawson, and she was laughing at something, head thrown back, unguarded, radiant. She wore a deep blue dress, simple but elegant, and she'd done something different with her hair. She looked like Hope wearing human form, and Cole felt something in his chest crack wide open. Their eyes met across the crowded room. Eliza's smile shifted, surprised, pleased, uncertain. She excused herself from Martha and crossed the space between them with purpose. You came, she said. Apparently. Cole felt suddenly awkward, out of place. Supporting the school, Crawford said it was for the children. It is. Her smile turned knowing, though I'm fairly certain Sheriff Crawford has been trying to matchmake since I arrived. Tom needs a hobby. I think this is his hobby. Eliza gestured to the crowded hall. What do you think? First town dance? First one I've attended in 4 years. That's significant. Maybe. The music shifted into something slower, and couples began pairing off. Cole watched them move together, awkward but earnest, finding rhythm in shared imperfection. I should probably warn you, Eliza said. Several gentlemen have already asked me to dance. I've refused them all, claiming exhaustion from organizing. But if you were to ask, I might find a sudden reserve of energy. Cole's throat went dry. I told Crawford I don't dance. Do you want to? The honest answer terrified him. Yes. Then ask. Cole extended his hand, formal and old-fashioned. Miss Hart, would you do me the honor? Eliza placed her hand in his. I thought you'd never ask. They moved to the floor, and Cole tried to remember how this worked. Where to place his hands, how to lead. The basic steps Sarah had taught him a lifetime ago. Eliza followed gracefully, compensating for his rustiness with practiced ease. You're better at this than you claimed, she said. You're making it easy. That's what good partners do. They danced in silence for a moment, navigating the crowded floor. Cole was acutely aware of her hand in his, her other hand on his shoulder, the small distance between them that felt simultaneously too much and not enough. Thank you for coming, Eliza said quietly. I know it costs you something. What makes you say that? Because everything costs you something, Cole. Every interaction, every connection, every step outside your carefully constructed walls. But you came anyway. You make me sound like a coward. No. Her eyes met his, serious and clear. I make you sound human. There's a difference. The song ended too soon. They separated, and Cole felt the loss of her warmth like a physical thing. Around them, people were laughing, talking, living their small lives with determined optimism. Walk with me? Eliza asked. I need air. They stepped outside into the cold night, their breath visible in the moonlight. The music continued inside, muffled now, a distant heartbeat. I need to tell you something, Eliza said, her voice careful. I've been offered a position back east, Philadelphia. Better pay, established school, all the resources I could want. Cole's chest constricted. When? The letter came last week. They want an answer by month's end. What are you going to tell them? Eliza turned to face him fully. That depends. On what? On whether I'm building something here worth staying for. She stepped closer. I came to Montana running from my past, but these last few weeks, working with the children, being part of this community, feeling like I matter, it's not running anymore. It's choosing. And you're asking me what to choose? I'm asking if there's a reason to stay beyond the work, beyond the town. Her voice dropped. I'm asking if I'm the only one who feels this thing between us, or if you feel it too and you're just too scared to admit it. The truth sat in Cole's throat like broken glass. He could feel it cutting him from the inside, could taste blood and terror and the awful vulnerability of admitting he wanted something again. I'm not good at this, he said finally. Sarah was the last person I let myself care about, and losing her nearly killed me. I don't know if I can survive that again. So your solution is to not care at all? It's worked for 3 years. Has it? Eliza challenged. Because from where I'm standing, you look like a man barely holding on, existing, not living, going through motions without meaning. At least I'm still here. Are you? Because it seems like you buried yourself right alongside your family. The words hit like a slap. Cole stepped back, anger rising. You don't know what you're talking about, don't I? Eliza followed him, refusing to let him retreat. I lost everything too, Cole. My position, my reputation, my future. I came west with nothing but desperate hope and one liar's promises. And yes, I'm scared too. Terrified that if I stay, if I let myself want this life, this town, this... She gestured between them. Whatever this is, it'll all get ripped away again. But I'm more scared of running forever, of looking back at 50 and realizing I never took the risk. It's not the same, isn't it? Pain is pain, loss is loss. What makes yours more special than mine? Cole had no answer. The anger drained away, leaving only exhaustion. I can't be what you need, he said quietly. I'm too broken. I'm not asking you to be whole. I'm asking you to try. Eliza's voice gentled. Stay scared if you need to. Stay broken if that's all you can manage. But stay present. Stop hiding from every human connection like it's going to kill you. What if it does? Then at least you'll die having lived something real. They stood in the cold silence, the weight of the conversation settling between them. Inside, the music shifted to something bright and cheerful, incongruous with the moment. I need time, Cole said finally, to think, to figure out what I'm capable of. How much time? I don't know. Eliza nodded slowly. The offer from Philadelphia stands until the end of March. That's 6 weeks. If you can't figure out what you want in 6 weeks, maybe that's my answer. And if I can, then we see what happens next. She turned back toward the hall. I should return. People will notice. Eliza, Cole caught her hand. I'm glad you stayed. In Silver Creek, I mean. You're good for this town. Just the town? He couldn't answer. She squeezed his hand once, then released it and walked back inside, leaving Cole alone with the cold and his cowardice. The ride home that night was the longest of his life. Cole replayed the conversation endlessly, searching for better words, braver choices. By the time he reached the ranch, he'd constructed a dozen different versions where he'd said what she needed to hear. But he hadn't. And now he had 6 weeks to decide if he was capable of becoming the kind of man who could. The weeks crawled forward with agonizing precision. Cole found himself riding into town more often, inventing reasons. He needed supplies. He needed to consult with Garrett about spring planting. He needed to speak with Crawford about wolf sightings. All lies wrapped around the truth. He needed to see Eliza. They didn't discuss Philadelphia again. Instead, they built something careful and fragile. Conversations over coffee at the boarding house, walks through town after school let out. Slowly, painfully, Cole allowed himself to be part of something again. He met her students, rough frontier children with hungry minds. He helped repair the school's roof when winter damage threatened the structure. He sat through a reading demonstration and felt something warm unfold in his chest when a 7-year-old boy successfully sounded out, "Cat." "You're good with them," Eliza said afterward, walking him to his horse. "They're good kids." They like you, that's rare. She smiled. You're not as frightening as you pretend to be. Don't tell anyone. I have a reputation. Your secret's safe with me. These moments accumulated like snow, individual flakes insignificant, but together building something substantial. Cole found himself laughing again, planning beyond the next day, thinking in terms of we instead of just I. It terrified him. 5 weeks after the dance, Cole rode into town to find the school empty and Eliza's room at the boarding house dark. Panic gripped him, irrational, immediate. He found Martha downstairs. Where is she? Martha looked up from her ledger, concerned. Who, dear? Eliza, Miss Hart. Where is she? Oh, she received a telegram this morning. Family emergency back east. She left on the afternoon stage. The world tilted. What kind of emergency? She didn't say, just packed quickly and left. Said she'd send word when she knew more. Martha's expression softened. She looked upset, Cole. Whatever it is, it's serious. Cole stood there, rooted to the floor, feeling the bottom drop out of everything he'd been carefully building. Did she leave a message? Just one. Martha retrieved a folded paper from her desk. Said to give this to you if you came looking. Cole took the note with shaking hands, unfolded it. Eliza's handwriting, rushed but clear. My aunt is dying. I have to go. I don't know when I'll return, or if I can. I'm sorry. Please don't wait for me. You deserve to live your life without more ghosts. The paper crumpled in his fist. Cole? Martha's voice came from far away. Are you all right? He wasn't. He was standing in a boarding house, holding a goodbye from a woman who'd made him believe in possibilities again, and he'd never told her what she meant to him. Never said the words that mattered. When did the stage leave? 2 hours ago. But Cole, even if you rode now, he was already moving. The ride to the stage station was reckless, dangerous, exactly the kind of thing a man did when he'd wasted too much time being careful. Cole pushed his horse hard, gambling everything on catching her before she disappeared into the east and out of his life forever. The station appeared on the horizon just as the sun touched the mountains. Cole saw the stage, saw passengers boarding, saw a figure in a blue dress preparing to climb inside. Eliza! His voice carried across the distance. She turned, eyes wide, and he was off his horse before it fully stopped, covering the ground between them in long strides. Cole, what are you Don't go. The words tore out of him. Or go, but come back. Promise me you'll come back. My aunt is dying. I don't have a choice. I know. I'm not asking you to abandon her. I'm asking you not to abandon us. Eliza's eyes searched his face. What are you saying? I'm saying I'm terrified. I'm saying I'm probably going to mess this up. I'm saying I've spent 3 years convinced I couldn't survive losing someone again, and now I'm more scared of losing you without ever telling you that you matter. Cole took her hands, held them tight. I'm saying whatever Philadelphia offers, whatever the East promises, I'm asking you to choose this. Choose Silver Creek. Choose the life you're building. Choose you, Eliza finished. You're asking me to choose you. Yes. You took 6 weeks and needed me to leave before you figured that out? I'm slow. You knew that. Despite everything, she laughed, watery, shocked, real. You're an idiot. I know. A stubborn, emotionally constipated idiot who makes everything harder than it needs to be. All true. And you waited until I'm literally boarding a stage to tell me this? Bad timing's apparently my specialty. The stage driver called out, 5 minutes to departure. Eliza glanced at the stage, then back at Cole, her mind working through options, consequences, choices. My aunt needs me, she said firmly. I'm not abandoning her. I can't. I know. But when Eliza's voice caught. When it's over, when I've done what I need to do, I'll come back. If you're still here, if you still want... Cole kissed her. It wasn't planned, wasn't smooth, wasn't anything but desperate and honest, and 3 years of frozen emotion thawing all at once. Eliza made a small sound of surprise, then her arms came up around his neck, and she was kissing him back with equal parts passion and relief. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, Cole rested his forehead against hers. I'll be here, he said. However long it takes, I'll be here. Promise me. I promise. The driver called final boarding. Eliza pulled back reluctantly, her hands lingering in his. Take care of the school while I'm gone. The children need consistency. I don't know how to teach. Figure it out. You're resourceful. She stepped toward the stage, then turned back. Cole? Yeah? Don't go back to hiding. Stay in town. Be part of things. Practice being human again, so when I come back, we have something real to build on. Is that an order? It's a request from someone who loves you enough to leave and trust you'll still be here when she returns. The words hung in the air between them. Love, spoken plainly, offered without defense. I'll be here, Cole repeated, putting everything he couldn't yet say into those 4 words. Eliza climbed into the stage, and Cole watched it pull away, carrying her toward grief and duty and the life she'd left behind. He stood there until it disappeared completely, until even the dust settled, until there was nothing left but Montana twilight and the promise he'd made. Then he mounted his horse and rode back to Silver Creek. Not to his ranch, not to isolation, to town, to the schoolhouse that needed a temporary teacher, to the community that had somehow, without his permission, become his again. To the future he'd been too afraid to reach for until the threat of losing it forced his hand. Cole Maddox had spent 3 years choosing death over life. Now, finally, he was choosing differently. And somewhere on a stage heading east, Eliza Hart was making the same choice, trusting that what they'd found was strong enough to survive distance, time, and whatever the world threw at them next. The story wasn't over. It was just beginning. The first morning without Eliza, Cole stood in front of 23 children who looked at him like he'd grown a second head. "Where's Miss Hart?" asked a gap-toothed girl named Lucy, her voice carrying the accusatory tone only a 7-year-old could manage. She had to go east. Family business. Cole shifted uncomfortably behind Eliza's desk, which suddenly felt too small, too delicate, too much like he was invading sacred space. "I'm filling in until she returns." "Can you teach?" This from Thomas, age 12, already skeptical of authority. "No," Cole answered honestly, "but we're going to figure it out together." The silence that followed was profound and judgmental. Cole had faced down wolves, survived brutal winters, buried his family with his own hands. None of it prepared him for the collective stare of 24 frontier children waiting to see if he'd crack. He pulled out Eliza's lesson plans, meticulously organized, color-coded, annotated with notes about each student's strengths and struggles. Reading her handwriting felt intimate, like eavesdropping on her thoughts. She'd left instructions for a month's worth of teaching, as if she'd known he'd need the scaffolding. "All right," Cole said, finding his footing. "Lucy, you're working on your letters. Thomas, you've got arithmetic. Everyone else, Miss Hart left assignments. Let's see what you're made of." The day was chaos. Cole had no idea how to manage 23 different learning levels, how to keep the younger ones focused while helping the older ones with complex problems, how to be patient when a child struggled with concepts that seemed obvious. By noon, he was exhausted. By dismissal, he was ready to burn the schoolhouse down. But something unexpected happened in the mess. A moment when young Samuel, who'd been struggling with reading all year according to Eliza's notes, finally sounded out "because" correctly. The kid's face lit up like sunrise, and Cole felt something shift in his chest. Pride, maybe, or purpose, or the ghost of the man he used to be before grief hollowed him out. "Good work," Cole said gruffly, and Samuel beamed like he'd won a prize. That night, Cole stayed late at the schoolhouse, reviewing Eliza's notes, trying to understand her methods. Martha brought him dinner, stew, and bread, which she set down with knowing eyes. "Heard the first day went well," she said. "Heard wrong. It was a disaster." "You're still alive. The children are still alive. The building's intact. By frontier teaching standards, that's a roaring success." Martha settled into one of the student desks, her frame comically oversized in the child-sized furniture. "She'll be proud of you. She'll come back to find I've ruined everything she built. Or she'll come back to find you kept it alive when it could have died. Perspective matters, Cole." He wanted to argue, but Martha had that look, the one that said she'd raised 5 children through wilderness and hardship and wouldn't tolerate self-pity from a grown man. "How long do you think she'll be gone?" Cole asked instead. "As long as it takes? Death doesn't follow schedules." Martha's expression softened. "But she'll come back. That girl's got roots here now. You don't grow roots that fast unless you're planning to stay. Cole wanted to believe her, spent the next weeks trying to. The days fell into rhythm, rough, imperfect, but functional. Cole taught in the mornings, worked his ranch in the afternoons, returned to the schoolhouse in the evenings to prepare for the next day. The children adapted to his gruff style, learned that his silence wasn't anger, just his natural state. Slowly, grudgingly, they made progress. But the nights were harder. Alone in Eliza's room at the boarding house, Martha had insisted he stay there instead of riding back and forth daily. Cole was surrounded by her presence, her books, her papers, the faint scent of lavender she used in her hair. He'd lie awake reading her lesson plans, her personal journals of student progress, and feel her absence like a physical wound. Letters came sporadically. The postal service was unreliable at best, and Eliza's updates arrived in clusters, 3 letters at once, then nothing for weeks. The first letter was brief, written from a stage stop somewhere in Kansas. Cole, I hope the school hasn't burned down. I hope the children are learning something beyond creative cursing. I hope you're not hiding. My aunt's condition is worse than expected. I may be here longer than planned. Don't give up. E. The second came from Philadelphia, her handwriting more strained. The city feels like a foreign country. Too many people, too much noise, too little sky. My aunt barely recognizes me. She has weeks, maybe days. The doctors are kind but useless. I read to her from books she loved, hold her hand, wait. This is what duty looks like. Sitting with death, remembering that love persists even when everything else fails. How are the children? How are you? I miss Montana more than I expected. The letter ended there, the thought unfinished. The third letter changed everything. Cole, my aunt, passed peacefully 3 nights ago. The funeral is tomorrow, but there's a complication. She left me everything, her estate, her fortune, her obligations. The lawyers say I'm now a wealthy woman, which feels like a sick joke. I don't want wealth. I want to come home. But the estate is complicated. The legal matters will take time to settle. Her business partners are circling, claiming debts and contracts. I need to stay and fight this, or everything she built will be stolen by vultures. I'm sorry. I know I promised to come back quickly. I don't know when I can leave. Please tell the children Miss Hart sends her love. Tell them I'm coming back as soon as I can. Tell yourself the same. Cole read that letter a dozen times, searching for subtext, for hidden meanings, for reassurance that her delay was temporary. The words, I don't know when I can leave, sat in his gut like poison. He showed the letter to Martha, who read it with pursed lips. She's trapped, Martha said flatly. Rich girl problems are still problems, but they're complicated ones. Money attracts parasites. She said she's fighting alone from the sound of it. That's the thing about grief and inheritance. People who ignored you when you were nobody suddenly become very interested when you're worth something. Cole folded the letter carefully, tucked it in his pocket. She'll handle it. Of course she will. But handling it and handling it alone are different things. Martha fixed him with a significant look. Just saying. What am I supposed to do? I'm running her school, keeping her job alive. I can't just leave. Can't you? School year ends in 6 weeks. You could hire someone to watch your ranch. Tom Crawford's nephew needs work. Responsible kid, knows animals. You're suggesting I go to Philadelphia. I'm suggesting you consider it. Martha stood, smoothing her skirts. That girl chose this frontier life over comfort once already. Chose you over whatever the East offered. Maybe it's your turn to choose her. The idea took root despite his resistance. Cole tried to ignore it, focus on teaching, on daily survival. But it grew anyway, insistent and undeniable. 2 weeks later, another letter arrived. This one was different, the handwriting shakier, the tone urgent. Cole, things are worse than I thought. My aunt's business partner, Marcus Thornwell, is claiming she promised him controlling interest in her companies. He has documents, contracts, lawyers who speak beautiful lies. My aunt's actual will says differently, but he's tying everything up in courts, making it impossible for me to access anything or leave. He's offered a settlement. I sign over everything, he gives me a stipend, I'm free to go. Everyone here says I should take it, that fighting will cost more than it's worth, that I should be grateful for the stipend and move on. But it's not about the money, Cole. It's about not letting vultures feast on my aunt's legacy. It's about fighting for what's right, even when it's hard. I'm so tired. Some days I wonder if I should just surrender, take the stipend, come home. But then I remember what you said about Sarah, that she taught you strength isn't just survival, it's choosing your own path. I'm trying to choose mine. I'm trying to believe I'm strong enough, but I could use someone reminding me I'm not alone in this. The children, are they well? Are you well? I dream about Montana, about the school, about right back. Please, I need to know I still have something worth fighting for. E. Cole read the letter in the schoolhouse after the children had left. Read it twice, 3 times, feeling rage build with each pass. He knew men like this Thornwell, predators who saw grief as opportunity, who dressed exploitation in legal language and called it business. He was at Garrett's Mercantile within the hour. I need to get to Philadelphia, Cole said without preamble. Fast as possible. What are my options? Garrett looked up from his ledger, eyebrows rising. Philadelphia? That's 2,000 miles, Cole. Stage travel alone would take 3 weeks minimum, and that's if everything goes perfect, which it won't. Railroad? You'd need to get to Omaha first, catch the transcontinental. Still looking at 2 weeks minimum, probably longer with connections. Garrett studied him. This about Miss Hart? It's about someone who needs help. Same thing. Garrett pulled out a map, began marking routes. Here's what I'd do. Stage to Omaha, train to Chicago, then straight shot to Philadelphia. You're looking at expensive, uncomfortable, and probably some delays for weather or mechanical failures. But it's doable. Cole pulled out his money pouch, started counting. Years of frugal living meant he had savings. Not much by Eastern standards, but enough. Book it, whatever it costs. Cole, you sure about this? You'll be gone at least a month, probably 6 weeks. Your ranch? Tom Crawford's nephew can watch it. Martha already suggested him. Garrett's expression shifted to something like approval. You're really doing this. She came west with nothing because she believed in a liar's promise. I'm going east because I believe in her. Cole met Garrett's eyes. That worth doing? Hell yes, it is. Garrett grabbed paper, began writing. I'll send telegrams today, get you on the next available transport. Might be 3 days, might be a week. I'll let you know. Cole left the Mercantile feeling like he'd stepped off a cliff. The decision was made, momentum carrying him forward whether he was ready or not. That evening, he sat the children down and told them the truth. Miss Hart needs help. I'm going to Philadelphia to provide it. Mrs. Dawson will take over teaching duties while I'm gone. The protest was immediate and loud. But you just learned how to teach, Lucy wailed. You can't leave, Thomas added. You promised Miss Hart you'd keep the school running. And I am, Mrs. Dawson is more than capable. She's old, someone shouted from the back. Martha, standing in the doorway, raised an eyebrow. I heard that, Jeremy Porter. You'll find old means experienced, which is more than Mr. Maddox can claim. The children had the grace to look sheepish. Why does Miss Hart need help? This from Sarah, 10 years old and sharper than most adults. Is she in danger? Cole considered his answer carefully. These were frontier children. They understood hardship, understood fighting for what mattered. Miss Hart inherited a lot of responsibility back east. Some people are trying to take advantage of that. She's fighting them alone, and that's not right, so I'm going to help her fight. Like a rescue? Lucy's eyes went wide. Like partnership. She stood up for herself when she came west. Now I'm standing with her. Understanding rippled through the room. These children had seen their parents fight weather, poverty, loss. They recognized the language of solidarity. You're going to bring her back, right? Thomas asked, and beneath the skepticism was genuine worry. That's the plan. Promise? Cole thought about all the promises he'd broken, all the certainties that had crumbled. But he thought about Eliza too. Her strength, her determination, her absolute refusal to surrender to circumstances. I promised to try. That's all anyone can promise. It took 5 days for Garrett to arrange transport, 5 days of Cole preparing, securing his ranch, making sure Crawford's nephew understood the animal's needs, writing detailed instructions for Martha about the children's progress. 5 days of second-guessing, of wondering if he was making a massive mistake. The morning he left, half the town showed up to see him off. "Bring her home," Martha said, embracing him with surprising fierceness. "And don't you dare come back without her." "Yes, ma'am." Sheriff Crawford handed him a badge. "Not official, but it might help if you run into trouble. Out there, frontier law doesn't mean much, but the symbol carries weight." "Thanks, Tom." The children had made cards, crude drawings, misspelled encouragements, heartfelt wishes for success. Cole took them all, tucked them carefully in his pack. "Tell Miss Hart we miss her," Sarah said, speaking for the group. "I will." The stage pulled away and Cole watched Silver Creek disappear behind him, the town he'd avoided for 3 years, that had somehow become home again. He was leaving security, comfort, the life he'd rebuilt, trading it for uncertainty and a cross-country journey to help a woman who might not even need him by the time he arrived. But as Montana gave way to plains, as the familiar became foreign, Cole felt something he hadn't experienced in years, purpose beyond mere survival. He wasn't running from pain anymore. He was running toward something worth the risk. The journey was exactly as miserable as promised. The stage was cramped, the other passengers ranged from boring to insufferable, and the roads tested his spine's durability. In Omaha, he caught the train, a massive iron beast that thundered across the landscape with terrifying speed. Cole hated every minute of it, the noise, the crowds, the complete lack of horizon. But he endured because waiting at the other end was Eliza, trapped in a world that understood contracts better than honor. He spent the travel time rehearsing what he'd say, how he'd help, but every scenario felt inadequate. He was a rancher, a frontier man, someone whose skills included shooting straight and surviving harsh weather. What use was that against lawyers and businessmen? Then he remembered Eliza's words. Strength isn't just survival, it's choosing your own path. Maybe his path was simply standing beside her, being the reminder that she had someone in her corner, someone who'd crossed 2,000 miles because her fight mattered. Philadelphia hit him like a physical assault when he stepped off the train. The city was enormous, buildings taller than trees, streets choked with carriages and people, noise that never stopped. The air smelled wrong, smoke and sewage, and too many humans packed too close together. Cole stood on the platform, suddenly feeling very small and very out of place. He'd telegraphed ahead from Omaha, sent word he was coming. Whether Eliza had received it, he didn't know. The return address on her letters had been a hotel, the Chestnut House, respectable but not extravagant. Cole hailed a carriage, gave the driver the address, and tried not to stare at the city rushing past. Everything was paved, everything was built, everything was controlled. No open sky, no wild spaces, no room to breathe. The hotel was elegant in a way that made Cole acutely aware of his travel-stained clothes and frontier roughness. The clerk behind the desk looked at him like he'd tracked mud across an expensive carpet. "I'm here to see Eliza Hart," Cole said. "She's a guest." The clerk's nose wrinkled slightly. "Miss Hart is not receiving visitors without appointment. Tell her Cole Maddox is here." "I'm afraid—" "Tell her." Cole leaned on the desk, letting his full height and frontier-hardened presence fill the space. "Now!" Something in his tone made the clerk reconsider arguing. He sent a bellboy upstairs with a message, leaving Cole to wait in the lobby, feeling like an exhibit in a museum of civilization. 10 minutes passed. 15. Cole was starting to wonder if Eliza had refused to see him, if the journey had been for nothing, if he'd misread everything. Then she appeared at the top of the stairs. Eliza looked different. She wore an expensive dress, deep burgundy with complex buttons and proper Eastern styling. Her hair was arranged formally, pinned and perfect. She looked every inch the wealthy heiress she'd become. But her eyes were exhausted, haunted, holding on by sheer willpower. Their gazes locked across the lobby, and Cole saw the exact moment recognition hit. Her expression crumbled, shock, relief, something that looked like breaking. "Cole?" Her voice came small, disbelieving. He crossed the lobby in long strides, and when he reached her, when he was close enough to see the strain around her eyes, the weight she'd been carrying alone, he said the only thing that mattered. "I'm here." Eliza's composure shattered. She stepped into his embrace, and Cole held her while she shook with silent tears, held her like she was the only solid thing in a world gone liquid and strange. You came, she whispered against his chest. You actually came. You asked me to remind you that you're not alone. Seemed like something I should do in person. She laughed, watery and broken. You crossed the entire country. You did it first, figured I owed you. They stood there in the hotel lobby while refined society stepped around them, while staff pretended not to notice the frontier man holding the crying heiress. Cole didn't care. Let them stare, let them judge. He'd come 2,000 miles for this moment. Finally, Eliza pulled back, wiping her eyes. I must look a mess. You look like someone who's been fighting alone too long. Cole cupped her face, his rough hands gentle against her skin. Tell me everything. Tell me how to help. She took his hand, led him to a private sitting room off the lobby. There, she laid out the situation. Her aunt's complicated business holdings, Thornwell's calculated assault, the lawyers who spoke in circles, the social pressure from Philadelphia's elite who thought she should accept defeat gracefully. They keep saying I should be grateful, Eliza said, anger finally cutting through exhaustion. That a woman my age, unmarried, should take the settlement and consider myself lucky. That fighting will ruin my reputation, make me unmarriageable, destroy any chance of proper society accepting me. And you care about that because? I don't, but they think I should, which tells me everything about how they view women. She stood, paced the small room. My aunt built 3 successful textile companies from nothing, employed hundreds of people, most of them women who had nowhere else to turn. Thornwell wants to dissolve it all, sell the assets, pocket the profit. Those women will lose everything. So you're not just fighting for yourself. I'm fighting for them, for my aunt's legacy, for the principle that vultures shouldn't win just because they're patient and ruthless. She turned to face him. But I'm losing, Cole. Thornwell has resources I can't match. The courts move slowly, and every day costs money I don't have access to. My lawyer is competent, but outmaneuvered. I'm running out of time and options. Cole listened, processing, thinking in the practical terms that had kept him alive on the frontier. What does Thornwell want? He asked. Really want, beneath the legal language. Control, profit, to prove he can take what he wants. So it's about power. Everything here is about power. Cole nodded slowly. Then we don't fight him in court. We fight him where he's vulnerable. Eliza's eyes sharpened. What do you mean? In Montana, when you can't fight a wolf pack head-on, you make them question whether the prey is worth the effort. You make yourself more trouble than you're valuable. Cole met her gaze. Who benefits if Thornwell's reputation suffers? Who loses if this drags out publicly and ugly? Understanding dawned across Eliza's face. The other business partners. The society connections he's leveraging. They want this quiet, respectable, done. So we make it loud. We make it a scandal. We make sure everyone knows exactly what he's trying to do and to who. Whom? Eliza corrected automatically, then smiled, the first genuine smile he'd seen since arriving. But yes, I see what you're suggesting. We make him toxic to associate with. Can you do that? Reach the newspapers, the social circles, make enough noise that supporting him becomes a liability? Eliza's expression shifted, calculating, strategic, the teacher planning a lesson, becoming a general planning a campaign. Yes, she said slowly. Yes, I think I can. My aunt had friends, people who genuinely cared about her. I've been so focused on the legal fight that I haven't leveraged the social one. But if I can frame this correctly, make it about honor and legacy versus greed and opportunism, people love a story, Cole said. Give them one worth repeating. They spent the next hours strategizing, and Cole watched Eliza transform. The exhaustion remained, but beneath it was the woman he knew, fierce, brilliant, absolutely unwilling to surrender. The campaign began the next morning. Eliza knew Philadelphia's social architecture the way Cole knew Montana's wilderness, every path, every danger, every opportunity. She'd been raised in this world before escaping it, and now that knowledge became weaponry. My aunt's closest friend was Margaret Ashford, Eliza explained over breakfast in the hotel dining room. Cole felt conspicuously out of place among the silver and crystal, but Eliza seemed energized by having a plan. She runs the most influential salon in Philadelphia. If I can convince her that Thornwell is dishonoring my aunt's memory, she'll destroy him socially. No one survives Margaret's disapproval. Will she believe you? She loved my aunt, and she hates men who prey on women. Eliza's smile turned sharp. I just need to present the facts correctly. Then let's go present them. But baby? Isha, the Ashford mansion occupied an entire city block. White stone, manicured gardens, the kind of wealth that didn't need to announce itself. A butler answered the door, looked at Cole with barely concealed disdain, and informed them that Mrs. Ashford was not receiving unexpected visitors. Tell her Eleanor's niece is here, Eliza said firmly. Tell her it's about Marcus Thornwell and honor. She'll see me. The butler hesitated, then disappeared into the house's interior. Cole and Eliza waited in an entrance hall larger than his entire ranch house, surrounded by paintings that probably cost more than Silver Creek's annual economy. I hate this, Cole muttered. I know, but we need this. Eliza squeezed his hand. Just be yourself. Margaret respects authenticity above everything else. The butler returned, led them through corridors of excessive refinement to a sunlit parlor where an elderly woman sat surrounded by correspondence. Margaret Ashford had the kind of face that had been beautiful once and settled into striking, sharp eyes, sharper intelligence, no patience for fools. Eliza Hart, she said, setting down her pen. I wondered when you'd come see me, and you've brought... Her gaze traveled over Cole with frank assessment. A bodyguard? A suitor? A very lost rancher? All three, possibly, Eliza said. Mrs. Ashford, may I introduce Cole Maddox? He's come from Montana to help me fight Marcus Thornwell's attempt to steal my aunt's legacy. Montana? Margaret's eyebrows rose. You've come a long way to involve yourself in Philadelphia business, Mr. Maddox. I've come a long way for Miss Hart, Cole corrected. The business is just details. Something flickered in Margaret's expression. Approval, maybe, or interest. Sit, both of you. Tell me everything, and do not bore me with legal minutiae. I want the truth. Liza laid it out. Thornwell's manipulation, the forged contracts, the systematic dismantling of her aunt's companies, the women who would suffer if he succeeded. She spoke with controlled passion, presenting facts without hysteria, making the case for justice rather than revenge. Cole watched Margaret's face shift from polite attention to genuine anger. Eleanor built those companies to give women options, Margaret said when Eliza finished. She believed economic independence was the only real freedom. And Thornwell knows this. He's not just stealing money, he's destroying her life's work. Exactly, Eliza said. But the courts move slowly, and my lawyer says we're losing ground daily. I need social pressure. I need Philadelphia's elite to understand that supporting Thornwell means condoning theft dressed as business. Margaret stood, moved to a writing desk, began composing something with swift, decisive strokes. I'm hosting a reception tomorrow evening. Every person of consequence in Philadelphia will attend. You'll be there, and you'll tell this story publicly. Not as a weeping victim, but as Eleanor's heir defending her legacy. I'll ensure the right journalists are present. Mrs. Ashford, I can't ask you to... You're not asking. I'm offering. Margaret sealed the note, rang for a servant. Eleanor was my dearest friend. That I didn't act sooner is my failing. Consider this rectification. Her gaze moved to Cole. And you, Mr. Maddox, what role do you play in this drama? Whatever role Miss Hart needs. Charming and direct. Eleanor would have liked you. Margaret returned to her seat, studied them both. But I should warn you, society can be crueler than any frontier. They'll scrutinize everything, your relationship, your background, your intentions. Are you prepared for that? Cole thought about wolves circling, about winters that killed the unprepared, about standing over fresh graves and choosing to keep breathing. I've survived worse. I'm sure you have. Margaret's smile was genuine now. Very well, tomorrow at 8, formal dress, Mr. Maddox, which means you'll need a proper suit. I'll send my tailor. That's not necessary. It absolutely is. You'll be representing Eliza, which means representing Eleanor's legacy. Appearance matters here, however idiotic that seems. She stood, signaling the meeting's end. Go prepare. Tomorrow, we start the real fight. The tailor arrived at Cole's hotel room within 2 hours. A pinched man named Silas, who looked at Cole's frame with professional despair. Montana, they said. Of course it's Montana. Silas circled him like a predator evaluating prey. When was the last time you wore formal attire? My wedding, 7 years ago. And before that? Never. Silas sighed dramatically. We have one day to transform you from frontier barbarian to acceptable society presence. Let's begin. The fitting was torture. Cole stood while Silas measured, pinned, criticized, and reconstructed him into something he barely recognized. The suit was black, severe, perfectly tailored to emphasize his broad shoulders, while hiding his complete discomfort with the entire concept. Stop scowling, Silas commanded. You look like you're attending a funeral. Feels like I'm wearing one. Fashion requires sacrifice, Mr. Maddox. Consider yourself fortunate that Mrs. Ashford is funding this transformation, or you'd be paying dearly for my genius. By evening, the suit was finished. Cole stared at himself in the mirror and saw a stranger, polished, proper, absolutely wrong. But Eliza, when she saw him the next evening, smiled with such genuine warmth that he almost didn't hate it. You look handsome, she said. I look like a fraud. You look like yourself in different clothing. There's a distinction. She adjusted his collar with familiar intimacy. Thank you for this. For all of this. Haven't done anything yet. You crossed the country. You're standing beside me in a world you hate, wearing clothes you despise, about to face down Philadelphia society. That's everything. The Ashford reception was exactly as terrible as Cole anticipated. The mansion blazed with light and noise, hundreds of guests dressed in excessive finery, conversations that meant nothing, smiles that hid calculation. Cole stuck to Eliza's side like a shadow, nodding politely while internally counting the minutes until he could escape. Margaret found them within the first hour, introducing Eliza to a calculated parade of influential people, journalists, politicians, business leaders, society arbiters. Each conversation was a performance, Eliza presenting her case with perfect balance of passion and reason. Cole watched her work the room and felt pride mixed with unease. She was brilliant here, thriving in an environment that made him want to flee. This was her world, or had been. Would she really choose Montana's harsh simplicity over this refined power? You're brooding. Eliza appeared beside him, stealing him away from the crowd for a moment. I can see it. Just observing. Observing what? You. How natural this is for you. Cole gestured at the glittering assembly. You belong here, Eliza. This is where you came from. This is where I escaped from, she corrected. There's a difference between being competent in a world and wanting to live in it. But if you win, if you take control of your aunt's companies, I'll hire excellent managers and return to Montana. Her voice was firm. I'm not fighting to reclaim this life, Cole. I'm fighting so I can afford to live the one I chose. Before he could respond, Margaret appeared with a distinguished man in tow, elderly, sharp-eyed, carrying himself with the authority of someone accustomed to being important. Eliza, Mr. Maddox, allow me to introduce Judge Harold Preston. He presides over the probate court handling your case. Cole's spine stiffened. This was enemy territory. The man with power to rule against Eliza, to hand everything to Thornwell. But Preston's expression wasn't hostile. If anything, he looked troubled. Miss Hart, Preston said carefully, I've been hearing disturbing things this evening about Marcus Thornwell's conduct. Things that, if substantiated, would greatly concern me. All substantiatable, Your Honor. Eliza's tone was respectful but firm. I have documentation of every false claim, every forged signature, every misrepresentation he's made to the court. Documentation you've shared with your attorney? Documentation my attorney deemed insufficient to challenge Thornwell's more expensive legal team. Preston's jaw tightened. I see. And you believe I would allow fraudulent claims to stand in my courtroom? I believe the legal system favors those with resources to manipulate it. No disrespect intended. The judge studied her for a long moment. You're direct. I appreciate that. His gaze shifted to Cole. And you, mister? Maddox, what's your interest in these proceedings? Cole met his eyes without flinching. Supporting someone who deserves it. Romantic interest? Among other things. Preston pulled out a card, handed it to Eliza. Have your attorney deliver all documentation to my chambers Monday morning. I'll review it personally. If Thornwell has been playing games in my court, he'll regret it. Thank you, Your Honor. Don't thank me yet. Truth is truth. If your claims are accurate, justice will follow. If they're exaggerated, you'll face consequences. He nodded to Margaret. Mrs. Ashford, always a pleasure when you're orchestrating social justice. I have no idea what you mean, Harold. Of course not. Preston's smile was dry. Good evening. He disappeared into the crowd, leaving Eliza staring at the card like it contained secrets. Did that just happen? She whispered. Margaret's influence is considerable, the older woman said with satisfaction. But don't assume victory yet. Preston is fair, which means he'll actually examine evidence rather than accepting Thornwell's money and charm. You need to be absolutely certain your documentation is unassailable. It is. Then Monday should be interesting. The evening continued, but the tenor had shifted. Word spread that Judge Preston had spoken privately with Eliza, that the Ashford seal of approval now protected her. Conversations changed. People who'd avoided her suddenly expressed sympathy for her situation, outrage at Thornwell's behavior, offers of support both meaningful and performative. Cole watched the social tide turn and understood, perhaps for the first time, that power here wasn't about physical strength or survival skills. It was about networks, influence, reputation. A different kind of warfare, but warfare nonetheless. They left the reception near midnight, exhausted but energized. You did it, Cole said in the carriage back to the hotel. You changed the current. We did it. You being here mattered, Cole. It showed people I'm not alone, not desperate, not someone they can ignore or dismiss. I didn't do anything. You existed beside me. Sometimes that's everything. She leaned against him, and Cole wrapped his arm around her shoulders, feeling the weight she'd been carrying alone for too long. Monday morning arrived with Philadelphia's typical gray drizzle. Eliza's attorney, a nervous man named Robert Chen, met them at the courthouse with boxes of documentation. Cole helped carry them, earning curious looks from the clerks and lawyers who populated the building. Judge Preston's chambers were austere, lined with law books and windows that overlooked the city's jumbled rooftops. Preston himself sat behind an enormous desk, reading glasses perched on his nose, expression unreadable. Miss Hart, Mr. Chen, please sit. His gaze found Cole still standing. Mr. Maddox, you can wait outside or stay. Your choice. Staying, Cole said, positioning himself behind Eliza's chair. Preston's mouth twitched. Amusement or approval, hard to say. Very well. Mr. Chen, walk me through the documentation. Start with the original will and proceed chronologically. What followed was 3 hours of meticulous examination. Preston asked sharp questions, demanded clarification, cross-referenced documents with ruthless precision. Chen fumbled occasionally, but the evidence spoke clearly. Thornwell's claims contradicted Eleanor's actual will in dozens of ways, relied on documents that couldn't be authenticated, and exploited legal technicalities to delay proper resolution. Finally, Preston removed his glasses, rubbed the bridge of his nose. Mr. Chen, your client's evidence is compelling, disturbingly so. Marcus Thornwell has, at minimum, misrepresented facts to this court. At maximum, he's committed fraud. He paused, considering. I'm calling an emergency hearing for Wednesday morning. Both parties present all evidence submitted for official review. If Thornwell cannot substantiate his claims to my satisfaction, I'll rule in Miss Hart's favor and refer the matter to criminal investigation. Eliza's breath caught. Your Honor, Don't thank me yet. Wednesday will determine everything. Thornwell will bring his best legal minds. Be prepared for war. Preston's expression softened slightly. But off the record, your aunt was a remarkable woman. I won't allow her legacy to be stolen by an opportunistic parasite. Not in my courtroom. They left the chambers in stunned silence. Only when they reached the courthouse steps did Eliza finally speak. He's going to rule for us. He has to. Don't assume anything until it's official, Chen cautioned. Thornwell is ruthless. He'll fight this with everything he has. Let him. Eliza's voice hardened. I'm not backing down now. The next 2 days moved in agonizing slow motion. Cole stayed close, a quiet presence, while Eliza prepared with Chen, while she met with her aunt's former employees to gather additional testimony, while she fortified herself for the coming battle. Wednesday morning arrived cold and clear. The courtroom was packed. Journalists, society observers, business associates, everyone wanting to witness the confrontation. Cole sat in the front row behind Eliza, watching her spine stay straight despite the pressure. Marcus Thornwell entered with his legal team, 3 expensive attorneys and the man himself, 50s, distinguished, radiating the kind of confidence that came from winning too often. His gaze swept the courtroom, pausing on Eliza with something between contempt and amusement. All rise for the Honorable Judge Preston. The hearing began with procedural formality, but quickly escalated. Thornwell's lead attorney presented their case. Contracts, agreements, documentation that supposedly proved Eleanor had promised him control. His presentation was smooth, professional, convincing. Then Chen stood for rebuttal. Cole watched Eliza's attorney transform. The nervous man disappeared, replaced by someone who'd spent days preparing for this exact moment. Chen systematically dismantled Thornwell's claims, pointing out forged signatures, impossible dates, contracts that contradicted other documented agreements. He presented testimony from Eleanor's actual lawyer, her accountant, her closest business associates. All of them confirmed that Eleanor had never intended Thornwell to inherit anything beyond his existing partnership stake. The courtroom shifted. Cole saw doubt creep into the observers' faces, saw Thornwell's confidence crack slightly, saw Preston's expression harden. When Chen finished, Preston called a brief recess. Cole used the time to check on Eliza. "How are you holding up?" "Terrified? Hopeful?" "Both." She gripped his hand. "What do you think?" "I think Chen destroyed their case, but I'm not a lawyer." "Neither am I, but I know truth when I hear it." She glanced at Thornwell across the courtroom. "He knows he's losing. Look at him." Cole looked. Thornwell was in heated discussion with his attorneys, gesturing sharply, face flushed with anger or fear. A cornered animal, recognizing the trap closing. Court resumed. Preston addressed both parties with judicial gravity. "I've reviewed all submitted evidence thoroughly. Mr. Thornwell, your documentation is inconsistent, poorly authenticated, and contradicts multiple verified sources. Ms. Hart's evidence, conversely, is comprehensive and corroborated by numerous credible witnesses." He paused, letting the weight settle. "I find in favor of Eliza Hart. Eleanor Hart's will stands as originally written. All assets, holdings, and business interests pass to her designated heir, her niece. Mr. Thornwell retains his existing partnership stake, nothing more." The courtroom erupted. Journalists scrambled for the doors. Observers whispered furiously. Thornwell's face went purple with rage. "Your Honor, I must object." His lead attorney shot to his feet. "We have additional evidence." "You've had months to present evidence, counselor. This court will not be manipulated by endless delays and false claims." Preston's voice cut like steel. "Furthermore, I'm referring this matter to the district attorney. Potential fraud charges will be investigated. Mr. Thornwell, you're advised to retain criminal defense counsel." Thornwell stood abruptly, his chair scraping loud in the sudden silence. "This is a mockery. That woman has no right." "That woman," Preston interrupted coldly, "is Eleanor Hart's legal heir. This court has ruled. You're dismissed." Security moved to escort Thornwell out as he continued protesting. Cole watched the man's downfall with grim satisfaction, not because he enjoyed others' suffering, but because justice, however imperfect, had finally arrived. Eliza sat frozen, Chen beside her grinning like a fool. Preston gavelled the session closed, and suddenly everyone was moving, talking, congratulating. Cole reached for Eliza's hand, pulled her gently to standing. "You won." "We won." Her voice came distant, shocked. "It's over. It's actually over." "Not quite," Chen interjected, still grinning. "There's paperwork, asset transfers, probably appeals from Thornwell's team. But the core battle? That's won." Margaret Ashford appeared from the crowd, embracing Eliza with uncharacteristic warmth. "Eleanor would be proud. You fought like she did, intelligently and without mercy." "I couldn't have done it without all of you." "Nonsense. We provided tools. You wielded them." Margaret turned to Cole. "And you, Mr. Maddox, you're a steadying influence. Eleanor would approve of him, Eliza. Remember that." The crowds eventually dispersed, leaving them standing on the courthouse steps in weak Philadelphia sunshine. Eliza turned to Cole, and he saw tears threatening. "I can go home now," she whispered. "Actually, go home. To Montana. To you." She stepped closer. "To the life I chose. The one that matters." Cole cupped her face, wiped away the tear that finally fell. "When?" "Soon. I need maybe 2 weeks to establish management for the companies, ensure the workers are protected, handle the essential transfers. Then I'm free." 2 weeks. Cole could survive 2 weeks. He'd survived worse. "Will you wait? Or do you need to return immediately?" He thought about Silver Creek, about the school, about his ranch. Martha had everything handled. The children were learning. His animals were cared for. For the first time in years, Cole had the luxury of staying somewhere because he wanted to, not because survival demanded it. "I'll wait," he said. "See this through properly." The 2 weeks that followed were a blur of legal meetings, business transitions, and gradual separation from the Philadelphia world. Eliza hired competent managers for each company, ensured worker protections were written into binding contracts, and established oversight that would prevent another Thornwell from emerging. Cole accompanied her to meetings, learning how business worked at this scale. The numbers were staggering. Her aunt's holdings were worth more than Cole had imagined possible. Enough to transform Silver Creek, to fund schools across Montana, to live comfortably anywhere in the world. "What will you do with it all?" he asked one evening over dinner. Eliza considered the question seriously. "Keep the companies running ethically, use the profits to fund education initiatives, create opportunities for women who have none, honor my aunt's vision while building my own." "That's ambitious." "Is it? Seems straightforward to me." She smiled. "Though I'm told wealthy women are supposed to collect art and host parties, not invest in frontier schools. Seems like wealthy women can do whatever they want." "Exactly my philosophy." On their final night in Philadelphia, Margaret hosted a farewell dinner. Intimate by her standards, only 20 guests. She gave a toast that made Eliza cry and Cole uncomfortable, speaking of Eleanor's legacy living on through her niece's courage. "To those who fight when surrender is easier," Margaret raised her glass. "To choosing purpose over comfort. To building futures worthy of the past." "Oh, hear, the guests echoed. Later, walking back to the hotel through Philadelphia's gaslit streets, Eliza took Cole's arm. "Are you glad you came?" she asked. "Yes." "Even though you hated every minute of the city?" "Didn't hate all of it." He covered her hand with his. "Some parts were worth the suffering." "Which parts?" "The parts with you." She laughed, the sound bright in the darkness. "You're getting better at this. Expressing emotions, saying nice things. Montana should prepare for your return. Montana should brace itself for ours." The word hung between them, ours, a promise, and a future. They left Philadelphia on a cold March morning, the city shrouded in fog. Cole had never been so happy to leave anywhere. The train carried them west, through cities that gradually gave way to towns, towns that gave way to frontier that finally opened into the vast Montana sky. When Silver Creek came into view, small, rough, impossibly beautiful, Eliza pressed her face to the window like a child. "Home," she breathed. The stage from the rail station let them off in the center of town. Cole had telegraphed ahead, so he wasn't surprised when half of Silver Creek turned out to greet them. What did surprise him was the banner strung across the main street. "Welcome home, Miss Hart." The children rushed forward first, surrounding Eliza with hugs and questions and cards they'd made. Martha was there, crying openly. Sheriff Crawford grinned. Even Garrett looked emotional. "Did you think we wouldn't celebrate?" Martha scolded, embracing them both. "You went east and conquered. That deserves recognition." "I didn't conquer anything. You fought powerful people and won. You reclaimed your inheritance. You're returning to honor your commitment to our children." Martha's expression turned fierce. "You're a hero, Eliza Hart. Accept it gracefully." The celebration lasted into the evening, impromptu, chaotic, thoroughly Silver Creek. Someone produced a fiddle. Food appeared from various homes. Children ran wild while adults swapped stories and speculation about the Eastern adventure. Cole found himself retelling the courtroom confrontation for the 5th time, embellishing slightly when Lucy demanded more drama. And then the judge said, "Mr. Thornwell, you're a lying scoundrel," and had him thrown in prison forever. Lucy's eyes were wide. "Not exactly," Cole admitted, "but he did lose, and justice happened." "Close enough," Lucy declared, running off to share this version with her friends. Eliza appeared beside him, laughing. "I heard Lucy's interpretation. Very dramatic." "She's 7. Everything's dramatic." "True." Eliza leaned against him, watching their town celebrate. "I miss this, the simplicity, the honesty. People who mean what they say." Philadelphia was complicated. Philadelphia was suffocating. She turned to face him. "This is home, Cole. This is where I choose to be." He kissed her then in front of the whole town, not caring who saw or what they thought. When they broke apart, someone was whistling appreciatively, and Martha was dabbing her eyes with a handkerchief. "About time," Sheriff Crawford called out. "Thought we'd have to lock you two in a room until you figured it out." The laughter was warm, accepting. These people had witnessed their journey, understood what it cost, and celebrated the outcome without reservation. As the evening wound down and people drifted home, Cole and Eliza walked together toward the school. The building stood quiet in the moonlight, waiting. "Tomorrow I reclaim my classroom," Eliza said. "Resume my actual purpose." "And tonight?" She smiled. "Tonight I remember what I fought for, who I fought for." Her hand found his. "Tonight I stop running from the future and start building it." Cole pulled her close, held her beneath Montana's stars that burned cold and eternal. They'd survived distance, fought power, conquered fear. What came next would bring its own challenges, building a life together, navigating commitment, learning to trust happiness again. But standing there with Eliza in his arms and Silver Creek spread below them, Cole finally understood what Sarah had tried to teach him years ago. Strength wasn't just survival. It was choosing to live fully, love openly, and fight for futures worth building. It was standing beside someone through everything and calling it partnership instead of weakness. It was this, all of this. "Ready to go home?" Eliza asked softly. Cole thought about his ranch, empty but no longer lonely. Thought about making room for another person, another heartbeat, another chance. "Yeah," he said. "Let's go home." The ranch house looked different when they arrived the next afternoon. Not physically changed, but transformed by context. Cole saw it through Eliza's eyes now, this structure he'd stripped of warmth and memory, and felt suddenly uncertain. "It's not much," he said, dismounting and helping her down. "I can make improvements, add rooms, make it more—" "Cole?" Eliza placed her hand on his chest, stopping the nervous stream of words. "It's perfect. It's yours. That makes it perfect." But as they crossed the threshold, Cole saw the truth she was too kind to speak. The house was functional but cold, a shelter rather than a home. The walls still bore empty spaces where pictures had hung. The shelves remained bare. Even the furniture was positioned for solitary efficiency, not shared living. "I'll need to change things," he said quietly. "Make room for someone besides myself. We'll change things, together." Eliza moved through the space, touching surfaces, opening cabinets, assessing not with judgment, but with the practical eye of someone planning improvements. "First thing, curtains. This place needs softness, and these walls are screaming for color." "I'm not good with color." "Lucky for you, I am." She turned to face him, smiling. "But before we redecorate, we should probably discuss the rather significant question we've been avoiding." Cole's throat went dry. "Which question?" "The one about what happens next. We've established we want to be together, but the specifics seem unclear." She moved closer, direct as always. "Are we courting? Living in sin? Getting married? I'm not particular about the order, but I'd like to know the plan." "What do you want?" "I asked you first." Cole took a breath, gathering courage he'd thought exhausted in Philadelphia. "I want you here. Permanently. As my wife, if you'll have me. As my partner in everything." The words came rough but honest. "I know I'm difficult. I know I'm still learning how to be human again. But I love you, Eliza. I want to build a life with you that's worth more than just survival." Her smile bloomed slow and radiant. That was almost romantic. "Almost?" The part where you called yourself difficult undercut it slightly. She closed the distance between them, took his hands in hers. But yes, Cole Maddox, I'll marry you. I'll live here, teach in Silver Creek, and spend my evenings arguing with you about curtain colors. I can't imagine anything I'd rather do. He kissed her then, and it felt like sealing a contract more binding than any Philadelphia lawyer could draft. When they broke apart, both breathless, reality intruded with practical concerns. "Should I ask your father's permission?" Cole asked. "Is that still required?" "My father disowned me when I refused to marry his business associate. His permission is neither required nor desired." Eliza's voice carried old pain firmly set aside. "But we should probably tell the town before rumors start. Silver Creek gossips efficiently." The announcement came naturally the following Sunday after services. Minister Davies, the earnest young man who'd been trying to reform Silver Creek's rougher elements, made a general announcement about community notices. Cole stood, pulled Eliza up beside him, and addressed the congregation with the same directness he'd used to report wolf sightings. "Eliza and I are getting married. Date's not set yet, but you'll all be invited. That's all." He sat down. The church erupted in applause and cheering. Minister Davies looked somewhat bemused at having his carefully planned service derailed, but even he was smiling. Martha cornered them immediately afterward. 3 weeks. That's how long you have to plan a proper wedding." 3 weeks? Eliza blinked. "Martha, that's hardly enough time." "It's plenty. This is Silver Creek, not Philadelphia. We don't need ice sculptures and orchestra. We need a clean dress, decent food, and people who care about you, all of which we have in abundance." Martha's expression softened. "Unless you want something bigger, we can accommodate that too." Eliza glanced at Cole, reading his discomfort with crowds and ceremony. 3 weeks sounds perfect. Simple and meaningful. "Excellent. I'll organize everything. You two just show up and say the words." True to her promise, Martha orchestrated the wedding with military precision. The entire town contributed. Garrett donated decorations, the miners built an arch of fresh-cut pine, the women sewed Eliza a dress from fabric she'd brought back from Philadelphia, pale blue silk that caught the light like water. Cole's contribution was simpler but more difficult. He climbed the hill behind his ranch to where Sarah and Emma rested beneath weathered markers. He hadn't visited in over a year, had avoided this place deliberately. Now he knelt in the grass and spoke to the silence. "I'm getting married. Her name's Eliza. You'd like her. She's stubborn as hell, smart as you were, refuses to let me hide from life." His voice caught. "I'm not trying to replace you. That's not possible. But I'm trying to move forward like you'd want. I'm trying to live again instead of just exist." The wind moved through the grass, carrying no answers, just the eternal indifference of nature. But Cole felt something release in his chest. Not grief disappearing, but grief making room for other emotions. Sarah and Emma would always be part of him. That didn't mean they had to be all of him. "I'll take care of her," he promised. "I'll build something good, something you'd be proud of." He stood, touched each marker once, and walked back down the hill toward the future. The wedding day arrived with perfect Montana weather, clear sky, mild temperature, the kind of day that felt like a gift. Cole dressed in the suit Silas had made him in Philadelphia, feeling only slightly ridiculous this time. Sheriff Crawford served as his best man, grinning like a fool. "Never thought I'd see this day," Crawford said, adjusting Cole's collar. Cole Maddox voluntarily participating in society. Hell might be freezing over. "One wedding doesn't make me social." "No, but it's a start." Crawford's expression turned serious. "You're doing the right thing. She's good for you. You're good for her. That's rare enough to celebrate." The ceremony took place in the schoolhouse, transformed by decorations and care into something almost magical. Every seat was filled. The entire town had turned out, plus miners from the hills, ranchers from neighboring spreads, even some travelers who'd heard about the wedding and stopped out of curiosity. Cole stood at the front beside Minister Davies, watching the door, and when Eliza appeared, his breath stopped completely. She was beautiful, not in the polished way of Philadelphia society, but in something more fundamental. The dress fit perfectly. Her hair was arranged with wildflowers woven through it, and her smile held such pure joy that Cole felt his eyes sting. Martha walked her down the aisle in lieu of absent family, both women crying openly. When they reached the front, Martha placed Eliza's hand in Cole's with a whispered, "Take care of each other." "We will." they answered in unison. Minister Davies began the ceremony with traditional words about love and commitment, but Cole barely heard them. He was too focused on Eliza's face, on the tears tracking down her cheeks, on the absolute certainty radiating from her. When it came time for vows, Davies offered traditional options. Eliza interrupted. Actually, we wrote our own, if that's acceptable. Davies blinked, then smiled. Of course. Eliza turned to face Cole fully, took both his hands. Cole Maddox, when I met you I was desperate, lost, clinging to survival. You gave me shelter when you wanted solitude. You showed me strength isn't isolation. It's having the courage to let people in. You crossed a continent because I needed you, stood beside me against impossible odds, and chose me over safety. Her voice shook but held. I promise to build a life with you that honors both our pasts while creating something entirely new. I promise to love you through difficulty and joy, to challenge you when you need it, to support you always. I choose you today and every day after. Cole swallowed hard, his turn. Public speaking terrified him, but these words had been burning in his chest for weeks. Eliza Hart, you walked into my life uninvited and refused to leave quietly. You saw through every wall I built, called me on every excuse, and somehow still thought I was worth the effort. His voice roughened with emotion. You taught me the difference between existing and living. You made me believe in futures again. I'm not easy to love. I'm stubborn, broken in places, still learning how to be fully human. But I promise to keep learning. I promise to stand beside you through whatever comes. I promise to build something with you that's bigger than either of us alone. He paused, then added, I love you. Seemed important to say that publicly. The gathering laughed through tears. Davies cleared his throat, visibly moved. By the power vested in me, and with this community as witness, I pronounce you husband and wife. Cole, you may kiss your bride. Cole pulled Eliza close and kissed her thoroughly, drawing cheers and whistles from the crowd. When they finally broke apart, both laughing, they turned to face their community as Mr. and Mrs. Maddox. The celebration that followed was chaotic and joyful. Food appeared in abundance: roasted meat, fresh bread, pies baked by every woman in town. Someone produced instruments and music filled the air. Children ran wild while adults danced and drank and celebrated love surviving against Montana's harsh odds. Cole found himself pulled into conversation after conversation. Miners congratulating him, ranchers offering advice about married life, women telling Eliza stories about his previous solitary reputation. He once went 6 months without speaking to anyone, Mrs. Peterson announced. 6 months! We thought he'd gone feral. I was grieving, Cole protested. You were hiding. There's a difference. But Mrs. Peterson smiled warmly. We're glad you found your way back to us. As evening approached and the celebration showed no signs of ending, Cole and Eliza slipped away. They rode back to the ranch together, the sounds of music fading behind them, stars beginning to emerge overhead. That was perfect, Eliza said, leaning back against Cole's chest. Exactly what I wanted. Simple and chaotic? Honest and full of love, the good kind of chaotic, she paused. Though I suppose now comes the real work. Building a marriage, a life. Figuring out how two stubborn people share space without killing each other. We'll manage. How can you be sure? Because we've already survived worse separately. Together, we're formidable. The ranch house waited, and when they entered, Cole saw it differently again. Not empty anymore, not cold. Just waiting to be filled with the life they'd create. The first months of marriage were an education in compromise and communication. Cole was used to solitude and silence. Eliza needed conversation and connection. He woke before dawn. She preferred sleeping late when possible. He ate simple, functional meals. She insisted on variety and flavor. They argued about curtains, about furniture placement, about whether the house needed a second bedroom immediately or could wait. But beneath the small conflicts was bedrock understanding. They were building something together, and every disagreement was negotiation toward shared vision. The school thrived under Eliza's renewed attention. She implemented programs she'd planned during her Philadelphia absence, using portions of her inheritance to fund supplies the town couldn't afford. Books arrived by the crate, desks were replaced, a small library was established. But her most ambitious project came 6 months into their marriage, announced over dinner with quiet determination. "I want to expand the school," she said. "Build a proper two-room building, hire a second teacher for the older students, create a curriculum that prepares children for college if they want it." Cole set down his fork. "That's ambitious." "It's necessary. These children are brilliant, Cole. They deserve more than basic literacy and arithmetic. They deserve real education." Not arguing, just noting the scope. "I have the funds. My aunt's companies generate enough income that I can invest in education without touching principal. Silver Creek could have the best school in Montana." Her eyes shone with vision. "We could attract families, grow the town, create a real future here instead of just surviving the present." Cole recognized that look. The same determination she'd shown fighting Thornwell, teaching her first class, choosing Montana over Philadelphia comfort. When Eliza committed to something, she transformed it. "Then let's build it," he said. "I'll help however I can." The construction project consumed the following year. Eliza worked with Garrett to design the building, with local carpenters to oversee construction, with educators back east to develop curriculum. Cole found himself managing logistics, coordinating material deliveries, solving supply problems, occasionally mediating disputes between workers. The town rallied around the project. Miners donated labor during slow periods. Ranchers provided timber from their lands. Even the skeptics who'd questioned whether Silver Creek needed expansion found themselves contributing. "Never thought I'd see the day when this town cared about education," Sheriff Crawford observed, watching the new building take shape. "Your wife's a force of nature." "Don't I know it," Cole replied, but his tone was pure pride. The school opened the following September to 37 students and 2 teachers, Eliza handling younger grades, a newly hired teacher named James Morrison managing older students. The building gleamed with new paint and possibility. At the opening ceremony, Eliza addressed the gathered crowd with simple eloquence. "Education is investment in future. Every child who learns to read, to think critically, to imagine beyond their current circumstances, that's a seed planted. We may not see the full harvest, but our children will. Their children will. That's worth building." The applause was thunderous. But the school was only the beginning. Eliza's vision for Silver Creek expanded like ripples in a pond. She established a lending library. She organized adult education classes for miners and workers who'd never learned to read. She created a women's cooperative that gave frontier wives economic power through collective selling of goods. Cole watched his wife transform their town and felt awe mixed with slight intimidation. She'd gone from desperate mail-order bride to one of Silver Creek's most influential citizens in less than 2 years. "Do I need to worry about you becoming too important for ranch life?" he asked one evening, teasing but curious. Eliza looked up from the papers she was reviewing, grant proposals for expanding the library. "The ranch life is what makes the rest possible. It grounds me. You ground me." She set aside the papers, moved to sit beside him. "Besides, I like the balance. Town work during the day, ranch life in the evening. Both parts make me whole. And if you had to choose, I already did. I chose you, this place, this life. Everything else is just details." The details, however, kept multiplying. 2 years into their marriage, Eliza discovered she was pregnant. The news arrived with spring, carried in Doc Brennan's gruff confirmation after weeks of Eliza's suspicious morning illness. "You're with child," Brennan announced. "About 2 months along, I'd estimate. Should arrive late autumn if all goes well." Eliza's hand found Cole's automatically. They'd discuss children in abstract terms. Someday, maybe, if it happened. But theory and reality occupied different territories. "Are you sure?" Eliza asked. "Been delivering babies for 30 years, I'm sure." Brennan's expression softened. "Congratulations, both of you." They left the doctor's office in stunned silence, walked to the edge of town before either spoke. "Are you afraid?" Eliza asked quietly. Cole's first instinct was to lie, to project strength and confidence. But they'd built their marriage on honesty, and he wouldn't compromise that now. "Terrified," he admitted. "I lost a child before. Lost my wife trying to save her. The thought of going through that again." His voice caught. "I know." Eliza squeezed his hand. "I'm scared too. Childbirth kills women every day out here, but fear isn't reason enough to not try for joy. What if I can't protect you?" "Then you can't, but you'll try, and I'll fight. and together we'll give this child the best chance possible." She turned to face him fully. "I won't pretend there's no risk, but I won't let fear steal this from us either." Cole pulled her close, rested his chin on her head. "You're braver than I am." "We're brave together, that's different." The pregnancy progressed through summer into fall. Eliza continued teaching until her 6th month, when the children's concern about her growing belly became too distracting for effective education. She spent the final trimester preparing, reading every medical text she could acquire, grilling Doc Brennan about complications, transforming the ranch house's spare room into a nursery. Cole, meanwhile, descended into controlled panic. He couldn't hunt without worrying something would happen while he was gone. He checked on Eliza obsessively. He rode into town weekly to confirm Doc Brennan would be available when needed. "You're going to drive yourself insane," Martha told him bluntly during one such visit. "And you're making Eliza nervous with your hovering." "I'm not hovering. You followed her to the privy yesterday. That's hovering." Cole had no defense for that. "Listen," Martha said more gently. "I know you're scared. I know what you lost. But Eliza is strong, and Doc Brennan knows his business. You need to trust the process." Trust didn't save Sarah. No. But destroying yourself with worry won't save Eliza either. Martha gripped his shoulders. "Be present. Be supportive. But let her carry this burden herself. She's perfectly capable." The labor began on a cold November night, 3 weeks before expected. Cole woke to Eliza gripping his arm, her face tight with pain. "It's time." Terror and purpose collided in Cole's chest. He helped her to the prepared room, sent their ranch hand racing for Doc Brennan, and settled into the longest night of his life. The labor was hard. 18 hours of Eliza enduring pain that would break most people. 18 hours of Cole feeling utterly useless while she fought. Doc Brennan arrived within 2 hours and took charge with professional calm, but even he looked concerned as the night stretched toward dawn. "She's strong," Brennan kept saying, "but the baby's position difficult. This may take time." Time became liquid, meaningless. Cole held Eliza's hand, wiped her forehead, whispered encouragement while privately begging the universe for mercy. As dawn broke, something shifted. Eliza gave one final, determined push, and suddenly there was a new sound in the room. A baby's cry, thin and furious and absolutely beautiful. "It's a boy," Brennan announced, cleaning the infant quickly. "Strong lungs, good color. He's perfect." Cole stared at the tiny, screaming bundle, unable to process that something so small could contain so much life. Brennan wrapped the baby in clean cloth and placed him in Eliza's arms. She looked exhausted, triumphant, radiant. "We have a son." "We have a son," Cole repeated, the words feeling impossibly large. "What should we name him?" Eliza asked, stroking the baby's dark hair. Cole thought about the past, the ghosts he'd carried, the future they were building. "Thomas, after Tom Crawford, who pushed me back toward human." "Thomas Maddox," Eliza smiled. "It's perfect." Doc Brennan finished his work, pronounced both mother and child healthy, and left with strict instructions about rest and recovery. Cole sat beside the bed, watching his wife and son sleep, feeling the weight of new responsibility settling onto shoulders that had borne too much already. But this weight was different, chosen, hopeful. Thomas grew quickly, filling the ranch house with noise and chaos that Cole initially found overwhelming and gradually learned to cherish. Eliza returned to teaching part-time when the baby was 6 months old, bringing him to school where students took turns helping care for him. "He's being raised by an entire town," Eliza observed one evening, watching through the window as Lucy taught Thomas, now 2 years old, to count using rocks. "Is that bad?" "It's perfect. He'll grow up knowing community, knowing he's surrounded by people who care. That's everything." The years accumulated like snowfall, gradual, persistent, transforming the landscape. The school expanded again, adding a 3rd teacher and offering classes through what would have been high school in established cities. Silver Creek grew from struggling mining camp to thriving town of nearly 600 people. The transformation Eliza had envisioned was manifesting ahead of schedule. Cole's role evolved too. He maintained the ranch, but increasingly found himself involved in town leadership, serving on the school board, helping mediate disputes, becoming the kind of community pillar he'd once actively avoided. "You've become a politician," Sheriff Crawford teased during one town meeting. I've become invested in my neighbors not being idiots, Cole corrected. There's a difference. But Crawford wasn't wrong. The man who'd hidden from human connection now chaired meetings, organized community projects, and served as quiet backbone for Silver Creek's continued growth. The greatest test came 5 years after Thomas's birth, when news arrived that Marcus Thornwell had died in Philadelphia, suicide according to reports, after his business empire collapsed under fraud investigations. The news came via letter from Margaret Ashford, who'd remained in sporadic contact with Eliza. He lost everything, Margaret wrote. His reputation, his wealth, his freedom. The investigation you triggered exposed decades of corruption. He faced prison, chose poison instead. I thought you should know. Your fight had consequences beyond what you saw. Eliza read the letter aloud to Cole that evening, her voice neutral but her hands shaking slightly. How do you feel? Cole asked. I don't know. Vindicated? Sad? Guilty that I'm not sadder? She set the letter down. He destroyed himself. I just refused to let him destroy me. That's all anyone can do. Is it enough? You saved your aunt's legacy, protected her workers, used your inheritance to transform an entire town. I'd say that's significantly better than enough. Eliza leaned against him, and they sat in silence watching Thomas play with wooden blocks in the corner. Their son, oblivious to Eastern drama, focused entirely on building towers that would inevitably topple. We've built something good here, Eliza said finally. Something that matters. We have. Think it's enough? The school, the town, the life we've made? Cole considered the question seriously. 5 years ago, he'd been a broken man hiding from existence. Now he was a husband, father, community leader, building futures instead of avoiding them. It's more than I thought possible, he said honestly. More than I deserved. You deserve everything, Cole Maddox. Took you long enough to believe it. The conversation was interrupted by Thomas knocking over his tower and announcing, "Again!" His favorite word, usually shouted with determined joy. Cole helped his son rebuild while Eliza began preparing dinner, their small domestic routine feeling simultaneously ordinary and miraculous. This was the life they'd fought for. Not dramatic or grandiose, just real and good and chosen. Years continued accumulating. Thomas grew into a bright, curious child who loved books and horses equally. Eliza's schools expanded to serve neighboring towns. Cole's ranch prospered. Silver Creek became destination rather than waypoint, a place people came to build lives, not just extract resources. On their 10th anniversary, Eliza organized a celebration despite Cole's protests about unnecessary attention. It's necessary, she insisted. 10 years of marriage, surviving Montana, building a family and community, that deserves recognition. The party was small by Eliza's standards, just close friends, family by choice rather than blood. Martha and Garrett, Sheriff Crawford, and Doc Brennan, the teachers from the school, families whose children had benefited from Eliza's vision. Standing before the gathered group, Cole felt compelled to speak. Not because anyone demanded it, but because gratitude needed expression. 10 years ago, I was barely alive, just going through motions, waiting to die. Then Eliza showed up at my gate, stubborn and desperate and absolutely refusing to disappear quietly. He found her in the crowd, held her gaze. She taught me that strength isn't isolation, that love doesn't weaken you, it multiplies your capacity for everything, that building something worth having requires risk, and risk requires courage. And courage is choosing to try despite fear. He paused, emotion threatening to overwhelm words. I'm not eloquent. I'm not good at public speaking. But I know this. Everything good in my life came from one decision, letting her stay that first night instead of turning her away. Everything since has been consequence of that choice. The gathering applauded, but Cole was still looking at Eliza, seeing tears track down her face. I love you, he said simply. Thank you for not giving up on the broken man at the gate. Thank you for opening it, she replied. The celebration continued around them, but they stood together in their own moment. Two people who'd found each other through impossible circumstances and built something that honored both their pasts and their shared future. Later that night, after guests departed and Thomas slept soundly, they sat on the porch watching stars blaze across Montana's infinite sky. Do you ever regret it? Cole asked. Choosing this life over Philadelphia comfort? Never. Do you regret letting me stay? Not once. Even when I reorganized your perfectly functional pantry? That was objectively terrible organization, and you know it. She laughed, the sound carrying across the quiet landscape. We've done well, haven't we? Built something that matters. Cole thought about Silver Creek, transformed from dying mining camp to thriving community. About the school educating hundreds of children who'd otherwise have no opportunity. About their son growing up surrounded by people who cared, learning that strength and kindness weren't opposing qualities. We've done better than well, he said. We've done something extraordinary disguised as ordinary life. That's the best kind of extraordinary. They sat in comfortable silence, two people who'd learned that love wasn't weakness, that community wasn't compromise, that building futures required both courage and daily commitment to small, unglamorous work. The frontier that had tried to kill Eliza that first desperate night now cradled their shared life. Silver Creek had gone from place they survived to place they'd built. The walls Cole had constructed from grief had been dismantled stone by stone, replaced with something far stronger. Connection forged through choice, tested by hardship, proven through years of choosing each other daily. What do you think happens next? Eliza asked, head resting on Cole's shoulder. More of this. Building, growing, facing whatever comes together. That's not very specific. No, but it's honest. He kissed the top of her head. The specifics don't matter as much as the principle. We choose each other. We choose this life. We keep building something worth leaving behind. For Thomas. For him. For the town. For ourselves. All of it. Eliza's hand found his in the darkness. I'm glad I answered that advertisement. Glad Harold Finch was a lying coward. Glad every terrible decision led me to your gate. I'm glad I opened it. Took you long enough. I'm slow. You knew that when you married me. Her laughter rang out again, bright and free, the sound of someone who'd found home, not in place but in person. They sat together under Montana stars, survivors of different disasters who'd chosen to build rather than merely endure, to love rather than hide, to create futures instead of guarding pasts. Inside, their son slept soundly, dreaming child dreams of horses and adventures. The ranch stood solid around them. Silver Creek sprawled below, lights burning in windows where families lived the ordinary, extraordinary lives that civilization required. And Cole Maddox, who'd once wanted nothing but solitude and death, held his wife close and counted himself the wealthiest man in Montana, not in land or money, but in the things that actually mattered: love hard won, purpose discovered, community chosen, a future built on the ruins of past grief, transformed into something Sarah and Emma would have blessed. The wolves still howled sometimes in distant hills. Winter still tested survival. The frontier remained harsh and unforgiving. But Cole and Eliza faced it together now, and that made all the difference. Ready for bed? Eliza asked eventually, the cold driving them inside. Yeah, let's go home. They were already home. Had been since the moment Cole chose courage over fear, connection over isolation, life over mere survival. The story that began with a desperate woman at a gate and a broken man choosing mercy had transformed into something neither could have imagined: a marriage, a family, a town reborn, a future worth building. And in the end, that was the only story that mattered. Two people who'd been lost finding each other and choosing every single day to keep finding each other again. The rest was just details. Beautiful, hard-won, absolutely worth it details.